the keys are to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from offseason to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show. Yeah, we're going on a little bit later than normal, Alex.
A little smidgen later.
But I mean, we just want to watch. We just want to talk some 49ers. I think that's what it's about right now. And so far, a little bit of a dead time. Nothing new.
What?
Yeah, over the last couple of days, it seems like we're just in a holding pattern. I've heard the Colts are interested in Baker Mayfield. They're not interested in Baker Mayfield. They're interested in Jimmy Garoppolo, but they're not interested in Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not sure what's going on. I just want to know who's swiping left and who's swiping right. I think we need a dating app for Jimmy Garoppolo and Baker Mayfield so we can actually see what's going on here.
A little bit. I'd like to know a little bit of what's going on, right?
Yeah.
A little bit of something to be happening here for the San Francisco 49ers. But it's fine. It's fine. Look, nothing is happening yet in 49ers land. That doesn't mean nothing will happen. And so that's why we're here, right? Just in case something does happen while we're going live, great. And if not, we got to talk about what's next. What is next for the San Francisco 49ers?
Yeah.
What are they going to be doing? Are they going to be doing anything? And it's just all over. It's all over. Free agency is done. It's finished. It's kaput, right? It's all gone. There's nothing else to hope for. Don't get your hopes up, 49ers. You're not signing any more players, or, is that a little bit dramatic? And there's definitely some guys out there. We're going to talk about all of it.
Yeah,
so
I think that's a little dramatic.
It's just a smidge. It's a smidge dramatic. So make sure you like the video right now and subscribe if you're new here and stumbled across the channel already. Niner Sickness Podcast. How you doing, my guy?
Yeah, what's up, Niner Sickness?
David Hasselhoff already, already wants to know, is there any chance Niners are going to be releasing Jimmy Garoppolo? I don't think we're there yet.
No, I don't think so. I think the 49ers haven't even made moves that they can still make to free up salary cap space. So until they do those things, until they've exhausted every single effort, to make sure they trade Jimmy for the pieces that they ultimately want, I think that Jimmy's going to be a San Francisco 49er. I think they still intend to move him. They want to move him, but they want to get the right amount.
Accurate.
And this is one of the things I tweeted about. And I said the misconception is that people think no one wants Jimmy Garoppolo, when in fact, it's that no one's willing to pay what the 49ers want for Jimmy Garoppolo.
True.
And there's a big difference there. I think there are teams that want Jimmy Garoppolo, but only at the right price, the price that they're seeking. And right now, the 49ers aren't willing to meet them in the middle. At some point, maybe John Lynch will, or at some point, maybe one of these teams will go that necessary route to get Jimmy Garoppolo. But as of right now, it's a complete holding pattern. And it's kind of crazy because it seems like every single time we expect a domino to fall and Jimmy Garoppolo to now be on the move, it doesn't happen. So this has been nuts. It's been one of those things to watch. And now we got Matt Ryan telling Atlanta, well, I want more money. I want a new 3-year deal to stay in Atlanta. So I don't think this thing is going away anytime soon, but I sure hope it would, because I would love just to kind of move forward, know what we're going to get for Jimmy Garoppolo, and that way we can, head into the draft and know what they're going to be going after as far as pieces, because I still think they would address a couple areas in free agency if they freed up the $25 million. But I don't think I think right now they have guys out there, so they're not really willing to restructure any contracts until they have to.
I'm in that boat as well. I think they don't want to have to do that. They don't want to restructure unless needed.
Yeah.
They don't want to extend unless needed. We've been saying this, and I've definitely been saying this now for a little bit of time, and it feels like with the 49ers and the situation with Jimmy Garoppolo and free agency and the players, right, that the Niners don't really want to go out there right now and sign big names. They don't want to add a bunch of guys. I think they're not necessarily content, but they're fine with sitting pat at the moment and really kind of making other teams sweat. And, I saw John Chapman tweet this out. I've seen a lot of Colts fans tweeting out things, Vikings fans tweeting out things. Salary cap, availability, we're not doing nothing. We're just sitting around. Colts, we got $44 million in cap space. We're not doing a whole lot of nothing. What is this organization doing? I'm seeing Arizona Cardinals fans lose their mind.
Yeah.
There's tons of organizations that aren't doing anything that have what you would think to be solid teams. The Colts are a quarterback away, you would think, ideally, from being able to not only make the playoffs, but be a problem for teams. Arizona is some pieces and maybe, shoring up your defense a little bit, doing a little something with your O-line to give Kyler some more protection. Like those types of things away from, you would think, being a more prominent force in a team that could potentially be dangerous come playoff time. Vikings are looking to just do anything different than what they've been doing to get themselves to a playoffs. And, if you don't bring new people in, why Vikings fans are like, are you doing anything different? 49ers fans kind of feel the same way. If we're not adding these names in free agency, are we getting better or are we getting worse? The NFC's weak. Everyone's going to the AFC. Why are we doing nothing? Well, the Niners have been doing nothing since 2017. Free agency has not been a time for the Niners to spend big. If anything, it's been a time for them to trade for big pieces and occasionally spend big, but they typically are a team that brings in kind of mid-level guys and develops them and adds them into the system, into the rotation.
I think recently they're mid-level guys. I tend to believe at the beginning of the John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan era, they did pay a lot more for free agents.
Fair.
Richard Sherman, you had Quan Alexander, you had Jerick McKinnon. Those are just Pierre Garçon, Marquise Goodwin. There's a lot of names that the 49ers brought in at different times, that costs a lot of money. So I think that that is the kind of something they're trying to shy away from a little bit. They did spend a lot of money on Travarius Ward, so I think we can talk about that. They did make a splash move there.
They did.
But everything after that has been on brand for the 49ers recently. They've shifted their focus to younger players that are under the age of 27 years old that don't have the risk of health injuries, no injuries. They play a lot of games. So I think that right now the Niners are just about availability, getting guys that can stay on the field and also about improving special teams, which they've done in free agency. But I think that over the next couple of weeks, because I think free agency is going to go pretty strong here as teams still, look to fill holes. And you talked about Indy having $44 million in cap space. Well, part of the reason they have the cap space is they're intending on trading for a quarterback. And one of those, if it's Jimmy Garoppolo, that's $25 million of that cap space.
True.
So they're in a holding pattern as well. So I just think there's a lot of moving parts right now. And the 49ers are just kind of waiting this thing out and seeing if they can wait out Chris Ballard in Indianapolis. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't think Indianapolis wants Baker Mayfield. I don't think they actually do. But maybe when push comes to shove, they go that route. I just wonder what'll happen to that team. Darius Leonard and those guys were frustrated already with Carson Wentz moving on. How frustrated will they be if they end up with Baker Mayfield?
Extremely, you would imagine, right? You would think they would be extremely the case. Spinic Danger said at 49ers Cutback, do we still have faith that Lynch and Kyle know what they're doing with Jimmy G? I do. I do have faith that they know what they're doing with Jimmy G. The question right now is are teams going to basically call the Niners bluff on this, right? Are you going to call the Niners bluff and make them hold on to Jimmy Garoppolo potentially all the way until the draft before something were to happen? I don't know what these teams are planning to do, Ant. I don't know what they're thinking.
Yeah.
With Baker Mayfield being a potential option for teams, with Matt Ryan possibly being an option for team, although that contract is really ridiculous. So I don't see how it's going to work out. But then again, you have the Cleveland Browns paying Deshaun Watson $230 million guaranteed and only $1 million in base salary this year somehow, some way, and he's still getting $45 million this upcoming season?
That's because they ripped up the entire contract and reworked it.
Correct. So I'm looking at things going. I don't see how it could happen, but it definitely could happen. Here's the thing, though. I think the Niners are actually still in a position of strength, pretty much so with this Baker Mayfield situation. Because what did the Browns do? The Browns went out and they gave up pretty much everything. They sold the farm. They sold out for Deshaun Watson.
Right.
So everyone and their grandmother knows they're moving off of Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is gone. They have no leverage with Baker now because you have to get rid of Baker Mayfield. You have to trade him. Whereas the San Francisco 49ers have made it very, very clear and have basically shown everybody their hand not their hand, but shown everybody they will hold on to Jimmy. I don't know if this team necessarily buy that they'll hold on to Jimmy, but the Niners are really making a play here to show that they don't have to necessarily get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo. They're going to move off of Jimmy Garoppolo if the mood strikes them, right? If it's the right situation. Whereas with Baker, you got to move off of him. So maybe the Niners are, I don't know, maybe they're playing a game of chicken. I've been saying this, but I don't know. Is there any way, are we at a point now where we need to literally consider this, whether or not Jimmy Garoppolo could stay in San Francisco?
No.
Not even a little bit?
No, they're going to move Jimmy Garoppolo.
I agree with you.
It's just win. They're not going to let him sit there and be the backup to Trey Lance.
Agreed there.
It just creates a bad situation in the locker room. And plus, you don't want Trey looking over his shoulder. It's time for Trey to be put forth, Nate Sudfeld to be the backup, and him to feel confident and comfortable with his situation as a starting quarterback. I don't believe Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be on this roster. I think he's going to get moved. The question is what? You brought up Baker Mayfield, and the rumor has come out that basically the Browns are looking for a day 2 pick, so either a round 2 or round 3 selection. If the Colts were that into it, this deal would be done. They could send one of those Carson Wentz 3rd round picks. Boom, done. You got your quarterback, right? That's not what's going on here. So that means it makes me think a little bit that they're still on the Jimmy Garoppolo train. The only added thing to it is that now Baker Mayfield's available. So it's smart for them to put out, hey, yeah, we have some interest in Baker Mayfield, to try to drive the price of Jimmy Garoppolo down for the 49ers. But I think this is just one of those things where the first one that blinks is going to be, the one that loses out in this trade.
Agreed with you on that. And Niner by Nature with a $10 super chat. Thank you for the great content, fellas. 100. Appreciate it, Niner by Nature. Thank you so much.
Niner by Nature. Appreciate it.
It's interesting, man. It's frustrating. It's confusing, I guess, to say the least. I guess the best word is confusing, because I don't understand necessarily why things are going the way they are. I know what the Niners are trying to get. I'm confused as to why someone's not biting, because it feels like these teams have made it very clear that the options they had were not the options or the best possible situation for their organization or their team. So then what are you waiting for? Are you just trying to bleed out San Francisco? Is that what you think they're just trying to do? They're just literally just like, well, yeah, eventually you'll come around. Eventually you won't want that second and a third. Eventually you'll just want a second, or you'll just want a third.
I think they didn't think the 49ers would get to the deadline, the 16th, and still hold on to Jimmy Garoppolo. I thought at that point they would make the phone call and then go through with the trade. But the 49ers proved that they were willing to be steadfast in their belief of what they want for Jimmy Garoppolo. And so I think that they just held back. And right now that kind of threw the Colts for a loop. But you also had all the moving parts going on with Deshaun Watson. All of a sudden Matt Ryan was available. You had Baker Mayfield available. Just the musical chairs at quarterback is something that everyone was going to have to work through. And so you continue to work through that right now. We don't know what's going to happen with Jimmy Garoppolo. But one thing we do know is the 49ers have about $4 billion right now in free space, that they can use to sign players. And of course, we all know that if they really want a player, they have ways that they can go extend players or rework other deals to be able to bring those free agents in. Just so far, they haven't been willing or haven't been forced to do so. At some point, that might change. And if that changes here in the next 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever, then we'll either hear about those moves or we'll hear about Jimmy Garoppolo getting moved, and they will settle with the deal with the Colts. If John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan walk away with the deal that they ultimately wanted to get, it will be a huge win for the 49ers no matter what. If they don't get the deal, then everyone's going to second guess their decision to wait this thing out. So I think it is a tense situation, but I think it's more tense for all of us. I think they know exactly where they're sitting, and I'm probably sure they feel more than comfortable with where they're at, because they're not really panicking either.
Accurate, they're not panicking. They definitely aren't panicking. I can't sit here confidently and say that this is all going according to plan for San Francisco. But if it's not going according to plan, Ant, they aren't letting anyone know it. They are not letting anyone know it. They're sitting pat. They aren't making drastic decisions. They're not doing what the Saints did and restructuring everyone under the sun. They're not going out and signing a bunch of guys and then having to make rash cuts and things of that nature. They're just steadfast in their belief that they're going to move Jimmy when they want to move him.
Yeah.
At the moment, that's what's happening. And I saw ironic. CMD said, "Did we sign anyone? We haven't signed anyone yet. Nothing has happened since. Nothing has happened since Ray McCloud. I mean, it's been all quiet on the 49ers front in the free agency market, and we've been seeing guys go and seeing things happen. The Niners are not a part of that. But I did see this from David M. The last quarterback that is really sort of holding up and hurting Jimmy G's trade market, he believes now, is Matt Ryan. A team like Carolina, Atlanta is never going to trade with him and never going to trade Ryan to them to a division round, so he thinks that's going to help Jimmy's market. I definitely agree with that from David there. That will help Jimmy's market. At this point, I think the only thing that was really holding it up was Deshaun Watson. And now that Deshaun's been moved, I think the Niners are still in the position where they're the kind of leaders in the clubhouse in terms of quarterback that's available. Matt Ryan's contract is a load. It's a huge amount of money to take on if you're another organization or team. Jimmy's is a big number, but you can also restructure and do some things with that, and it's not as bad of a hit and do some things with that number where it's not as big of a hit right now.
Yeah, you can restructure Matt Ryan's contract and still pay $11 million more per year than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Accurate.
So I think teams are going to be a little leery of that. He's getting way up there in age. I mean, he's 8 years older than Jimmy Garoppolo, so that makes a big difference. I think when it comes down to it, though, it's what you're going to get. And, Matt Ryan has reached out to Atlanta, I guess, and this is just rumors at this point. I know it hasn't been confirmed. But he, stated that he wants a new 3-year contract. Are they going to make that commitment to him, or is it, time to see him go? I think the Colts would rather have Jimmy than Matt Ryan just because of mere age, right? I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo gives you a better chance of being able to sign him to a longer-term deal. They've went with these retreads before at the end of their, careers, and it hasn't really worked out for them so far. So getting Jimmy Garoppolo a proven leader. And it seems like that is something they really need in that locker room right now, is somebody that can help gel this thing and put this thing together. The question is, what's he going to be worth? I seen that David Hasselhoff thought that, as a fan, Jimmy Garoppolo for a fifth was, what he would be okay with. I think the price has come down as far as what the fans believe, Alex. What is what you think? Has it changed your market value on Jimmy Garoppolo, the fact that he hasn't been moved already?
No, it doesn't. In all honesty, with Jimmy not being moved in, I'm not sitting there thinking to myself, Jimmy, we're in trouble with Jimmy, right? That we can't get it done with Jimmy. That we're in a bad position with Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't feel that way. It doesn't feel that way.
Not yet, or do you think there will be a point where it gets there?
There might be a point where it gets there. I don't think it's right now, though. I think it would be coming up on the draft. I feel like that would be the time where maybe 49ers fans, maybe not myself, but 49ers fans in general, may be feeling like, hey, we got ourselves a cluster of a situation here where Jimmy Garoppolo has not been moved yet. How many teams are really interested in Jimmy at this point in time? Maybe teams are just done. They've given up.
Yeah.
And I think teams' moves will also give you an idea of that as well, right? If teams start moving key players that need quarterbacks, they start moving off of guys, trading some guys, dealing some guys, even cutting guys, then you can be like, we may have screwed the pooch here. We may have held on just a little bit too long, demanded a little bit too much, and these teams are like, you know what, we'd rather rebuild than go this route and have to pay this guy a lot of money and maybe not be a whole heck of a lot better of a football team. Maybe they just truly don't believe in Jimmy Garoppolo. But I don't see that yet. I don't think we're there yet.
No, I mean, and the thing is, right, if Matt Ryan does get a new deal in Atlanta and Baker Mayfield does get shipped to Seattle, once again, you're in that, eyes locked down, Chris Ballard versus John Lynch. Who gets the most for Jimmy Garoppolo, or vice versa? Who gets the least amount in Ballard's case?
One more.
I think it's something that's interesting.
Absolutely.
Welcome, new subscriber.
Khalid the drummer, Patrick Jr.
Ooh,
Welcome to the TCC.
That. Yeah.
My goodness gracious.
Yeah, so I think it's an interesting concept, but we've talked about Jimmy Garoppolo a lot, and I think Jimmy Garoppolo is one of the linchpins in the 49ers offseason because they would free up $25 million. But with the $4 million and the money they could free up from other areas, Alex, what is a direction you think the 49ers could go next? Because that's really what we're trying to talk about. Where do the 49ers go next? And let's just leave it that Jimmy Garoppolo is on the contract or under contract, for the time being. What moves can they make with Jimmy Garoppolo's $25 million still on the docket? On the docket,
I think the first thing is extending Jimmy Ward, right? I think Jimmy Ward extension and freeing up some more room so you can do some stuff is the first thing. The first domino that would fall before the 49ers were to do something, like actually sign a free agent, go after someone else, bring someone else into the fold. I think the first thing is a Jimmy Ward extension. It makes the most amount of sense. You lock the guy up who had one of his best years statistically for San Francisco in the secondary, and a guy who's shown he's a leader in that, not only that secondary, but in that defensive room, in that locker room as well. You keep him around. He's a guy who's been playing great, has been healthy, has been available for San Francisco, and continues to improve. You keep him around, you keep him a part of this group. You're not going to have to pay him a significantly huge chunk of money, but you're going to be able to extend him, pay him a little bit more down the road, free up some space right now as well to maybe go sign some other guys. And probably mid-level bargain basement guys is what we're looking at. The nice thing is some of the contract details have come out for the last couple of guys that the Niners have brought in. Hassan Ridgeway's contract is $1.035 million this upcoming season.
Yeah.
It is low. And the only other guys that we know of, Ant, that have a $1.035 cap hit this year are vet exemption salaries. So I don't know if the details are out officially, but it's looking like that might be a veteran minimum exception salary, which means we're looking at a situation where he's going to be only $836 million against the cap.
Yeah, he's very incentive laden. His contract is very incentive laden. So the amount of production he has during the year is going to determine how much money he makes. The cool thing about incentive laden contracts is they don't affect you until the next year. Because you earn those incentives during 2022, it wouldn't count against the cap in 2023.
What do we know about next year, too, with the cap?
Yeah, the cap's going to go up monstrously because of the TV deals. We know Charvarius Ward's contract is also very favorable this year and then takes a huge jump to $13 million next year. The cool thing is all the guaranteed money's in the first 2 years. It's basically a 2-year deal. This is kind of something that they've been doing. They work the front part of these contracts so that way they have flexibility at the end. That is the part where if Charvarius Ward plays at a high level, you re-sign him. If he doesn't, you're using that money on Nick Bosa and Deebo Samuel. I think there are questions, though. You were talking about Jimmy Ward in the safety room. are the 49ers going to do more in the safety room? I mean, I think people, there was some talk, especially from Colts fans, about, Odom and the fact that Odom possibly could start for the 49ers. But maybe it's one of the other guys as a starter for the 49ers. Could the 49ers be looking at Jimmy Ward and Tarvarius Moore and being like, no, these are our starters this year, and we're going to have Odom and Talanoa Hufanga be the backups, and they actually don't address the safety room at all? Because one of the most popular things to do during this offseason has been to mock draft and mock safeties to the 49ers. We've heard all the names, right? O'Neal, Petrie. I mean, all the names are coming this way.
Except for your boy from UTSA.
Yeah. Well, everyone's seeing him as a corner still.
Yeah, I know.
Eventually they'll come around. Eventually they'll see it. The cool thing is I think that the 49ers do have available safeties they can go for all throughout this draft. And because safety is not one of those positions you normally draft high, there will be a very good football player at 61, at 93, at 105, all in that area. And the 49ers like to take a chance with the compensatory pick at 105. The last pick of the third round is the 49ers. We'll see how they strike. So I think this is going to be something to watch, but I just wonder, Alex, do you think they're actually going to go safety? We've heard the names, Tyrann Mathieu. We've heard Jaquiski Tartt coming back. But could it in fact be they've already made their moves, and this is just what the safety room is going to look like?
Could be. And we said this when Odom got signed. It didn't feel like it, but could be wrong. We could 100% be wrong on this. And Odom is the guy they're coming in to shore up the room.
Yeah.
And they're going to draft another young guy behind everyone else. It would make sense, right? Especially since, think about it, you just said it, right? The 49ers have been going younger players, who don't have injury history and things of that nature. So
yeah,
younger, who doesn't have an injury history, there's plenty of safeties like that in the draft they could go get, and there's plenty of guys who would fit in the system. So if the Niners do something like that and go that route, then George Odom makes sense. It's a guy who's been reliable, he's been healthy, he's been available, been available for every single game in his career. He was talking, I saw him tweeting out about his missed tackles in the box last year, which was a big old zero, a big fat goose egg. It's in the Niners scheme with what they like to do in the run. So it's a guy who does fit a lot of things, and maybe they think there's something there. Or it could just be, right, that Tarvarius Moore and Talanoa Hufanga, they believe, are ready to take the next step and think they can get the job done with those two guys. All of it's possible. What is on San Francisco's mind, though? Because it felt like this was the year that if you were going to make moves and go get big name free agents, that this was the time to do it. You were going to free up Jimmy Garoppolo's cap space. You were going to be able to extend and restructure some contracts to get yourself close to what the the Indianapolis Colts are at in terms of contracts and availability, in terms of cap space, around $40 million or so dollars. You and I were sitting there going, in a perfect world where you make all of these moves, you got $40 million in cap space, you can go get a couple of big name guys and then fill out with some bargain basement and some mid-level, and you're good. Especially if you work out the contracts the right way. Nothing. All quiet. One big contract, a lot of low-level, not even mid-level guys, low-level contracts to fill out the roster, add something to the special teams, and fulfill roles. I was anticipating this being the year. It doesn't look like this is the year. So if this isn't the year, you may be right. We may have made the last move in the safety room of free agency. We may be drafting some guys at that spot. We may not be grabbing another offensive lineman. I talked about this with Camperman this morning. He was like, what are the Niners going to do with the line? I was like, brace yourself. Maybe nothing. You got 9 guys. You got 9 guys sitting there currently.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to address the O-line right now. You have 9 names. So are they comfortable with the names? Possibly. They might be.
I think that it all depends on the development of Jalen Moore and Aaron Banks. I mean, they put in the money, right? They put in the capital, the draft picks there. I think Aaron Banks was always intended to start. And last year, if Aaron Banks would have been ready, every single 49er fan would have been super excited about Aaron Banks coming in and improving the room. So I think that Aaron Banks is a legitimate option to start as long as he's developed, under Chris Forrester the way that they think he has. I think the question is how much more are the 49ers going to put into it? And I don't think it's so much in free agency. Everyone is expecting it to be a big name. We have the injury concerns with Mike McGlinchey now because of how severe his injury was.
True.
But you're looking at the different guys that they could possibly bring in. And in the draft, I think is where they would address it. You bring in some guys that can come in and compete with Colton McKivitz, compete with Justin Skule, compete with Daniel Brunskill, with Aaron Banks and Jalen Moore, and you roll out the best guys. I think that they do need to continue to look for a replacement for Alex Mack as he continues to translate, into his retirement, because that's what's going to happen. It's either this year or the next year. He signed a 3-year deal. More than likely, this is his last season. So they need to have somebody. Could they get Lindstrom in the draft? I think there's a lot of different opportunities for the 49ers to improve this room. But yeah, I've been talking about this for a while. This might be the group that they go with. minus some draft picks that they could bring in to compete. I don't know who's going to end up being available. We know that the Bengals cut one of their offensive linemen, but it's not like they had a great offensive line. There are some names out there still, but all the big names are kind of coming off the board besides Armstead. I believe he's the only one out there, and the Niners aren't going that route. So it'll be bargain basement. This offensive line is going to look very similar to what it was last year because as of right now, it seems like you're going to have Mack at center, Banks, Brunskill at guards, and then you're going to have McGlinchey and Williams at tackles. That's just what it looks like right now. And I don't think a lot of people are going to be happy about that. The one thing I am interested is how this run game looks because now we have to replace Raheem Mostert's speed. But how this run game looks, coupled with Trey Lance's ability to extend plays and then get the ball down the field to some of his receivers. And now that you've added a player like Ray McCloud, you have a little bit more explosiveness. But of course, the coolest thing about Ray McCloud is hopefully he's going to wear number 14. So that way my number 14 jersey is going to look really good with McCloud on the back.
Woo!
Yeah. And shout out to San Francisco for actually tagging Ray McCloud in that.
That's very true.
And tagging us in the same. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we really do appreciate it. And
yeah.
Ray McCloud, look, come on. You can chat with us about what it means to wear the number 14 in San Francisco.
I'm sure Ray McCloud's watching right now.
He's 100% watching. Yeah, why wouldn't he be?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he be? There's a lot of questions. We've missed a handful of them. We'll try and get to as many as we possibly can, gentlemen. As many as we possibly can. Let's go back here a little bit. Are we keeping... I have no idea who that is, Sean. You'll have to tell me who KK is. I'm not sure. And do you know who KK is? I'm blanking here on the initials KK.
Unless we're talking about K1 Williams, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure who KK is. Sorry.
I'm not sure who KK is. So Sean, kind of tag us in that, my guy. Tag us in that. Someone had asked a little bit ago, and if the Niners David Hasselhoff, I believe, asked, can the Niners, do they just believe that maybe with the pieces they currently have, that they can just win with Trey because of Trey's maybe, certain particular set of skills that he's adding to the quarterback room, the ability to throw the deep ball, keep plays alive. They're not worried necessarily maybe about addressing O-line as much as maybe they should, or maybe the fan base wants them to address. But Trey he's just special enough that it's not going to matter.
Well, there's aspects of his game that are going to lend to what the 49ers want to do on offense. Number one, because he can run the football, has a threat to run the football, he's going to create lanes for the running game because a defensive end is going to have to freeze on the outside and not be able to go down the line of scrimmage when you run your zone play. If he can't close that gap, if he can't squeeze it down because he has to worry about Trey Lance running the football, then that's going to create lanes for your running backs to be able to run. That's why I thought Raheem Mostert would be dynamic. Sure. Of course, we have Elijah Mitchell, and he's great at reading the hole. So I think that is something that goes into it. Plus, with Trey Lance's ability to throw the ball down the field and them knowing Trey Lance wants to throw the ball down the field, you're going to see less 8-man boxes against the 49ers. True. If you see less 8-man boxes, that means you're going to have more room for the run game to get going. Once that does, that creates play action, what do we talk about all the time? Mike McGlinchey, Daniel Brunskill, it'll be Aaron Banks as well, Alex Mack. They all operate so much better when it's a play action game because then they can get moving forward. They can get moving side to side. They're not in a traditional pass set or in a kick slide. So I think these are good situations for the 49ers. Also, movement of getting Trey Lance outside the pocket will allow him more freedom, more vision, able to use his ability to get the ball down the field. And now you're adding dynamic players. Hopefully they'll add either another dynamic speed threat or in the free agency or in the draft. I just think this Trey Lance is going to add a lot to this offense and could fundamentally change what they need from that offensive line. So in kind of retrospect, they might not need more from the offensive line than what they already got.
Jay Good 49. How do you not know who KK is? K1 Williams. I don't refer to K1 Williams as KK. I refer to him as the Shark.
So I was right though. KK, K1 Williams. There you go. Somehow
got it right. I don't know how you got it right, but okay.
Because we're on the same wavelength.
Well, look at that, Ant. Thank goodness for that. Thank goodness you're here for that, and I'm not here for that. I'm not part of that. Look, I think K1 Williams is definitely a possibility. Obviously, he's going to be. He's a guy who plays very well in the slot for us, and especially in that nickel role. But do the Niners want to get younger at that spot? Do they want to get a guy who with maybe potentially more upside? Do they believe that they have a guy on the roster already in Demo who's developed enough? I don't know. I don't think Demo is ready quite yet. I think you and I have both said he needs probably a little bit more time, maybe one more year. But Shane, Arizona 49ers Empire, just asked, what's up with Kerry Hyder? So he got released by Seattle, I saw Jan Stewart had said that. You and I had brought this up and mentioned it, that when it happened, we were live streaming and we brought up and said, maybe we need to go this route. Maybe bringing this back in as a rotational piece might be a good option. He's definitely plays his best football, Ant, with Chris Kasarik. And shout out to Philip there for the $2 super chat. And I'm going to mess up the pronunciation. I apologize. I think it was Jaro. I forget what the last part of it was, but he's just subscribed as well. There it is. Hold on. Sal Gyro 07 for the subscription. Thank you for joining the Cutback crew. What do you think about Kerry Hyder? What do you think about that?
I was gonna give a shout out to Arnold Salazar or Noodles for being in the chat. What's up, Noodles?
Noodles. How's
it going? Yeah, you know what? Kerry Hyder is a nice rotational piece. So if you're looking to get Kerry Hyder in instead of Jordan Willis, that would be a possibility. Kerry Hyder's another one that has a big enough frame. You can move him inside. So if you want him to be the replacement for Arden Key at a cheaper rate, he definitely would be. I believe that Arden Key is a more dynamic, explosive player.
Agreed with
so
you.
Arden Key would be the better option. But at this point, he's where Kerry Hyder was last year. Now Hyder's getting cut as somebody that's a scheme fit. Well, what scheme does he fit? The 49ers. So it obviously makes more sense that he would come back to San Francisco and play for, Chris Kasarik. But Kasarik could also look at it as like, look, I have a more dynamic piece in Arden Key, so I could do more with his talents than I can with Hyder. But I think at the right price, Hyder would make sense to come back to San Francisco. Let's see if, one of these other teams like the Jets or the Dolphins or somebody that's going to be interested in him. Jets more than Dolphins because Dolphins are going to run a 3-4. I don't really see him playing a 5 tech. So
Fair.
It would make sense for the Jets, but at what price? That's what it all comes down to, and that's what it always comes down to the 49ers as well.
Agreed there. 49ers Laker for Life had just asked too, Hyder or Key. I tend to lean more towards Key. I think he's more dynamic in the system. You can do more things with him. And he's definitely more explosive, man. More explosive, a lot quicker. John Paul said, but we need a true deep threat to throw to. Ray could possibly help, but we need another one. Agreed with you. Agreed with John Paul there, 100%. You got to go out and get somebody.
Yeah, this is what we talked about. In fact, when we were building our wide receiver room, we talked about what Debo does, Ayuk does, and then we talked about what Juwan Jennings does as a possession receiver who can convert on third down and is a red zone threat. Then you needed a tall speed wide receiver, somebody like Christian Watson. That's why he made a lot of sense. MVS made a lot of sense. Someone that could take it up the seam, run that deep fade for Trey Lance, and then have a guy, and that's why we kept bringing up Jakeem Grant, Isaiah McKenzie. It ends up being Ray McCloud as the guy that can be the jittery guy that can catch the ball over the middle, make somebody miss, and make something happen, but also was a dynamic running back in high school. So he has the vision and ability to run your fly sweeps, your zone run games if you want to do sort of Debo Samuel style of things. Of course, like we always say, it's not the level of Debo Samuel, but I think you get different tools in your tool belt there, where Kyle Shanahan can use them in a multitude of different ways. I think that's what they're trying to go for. Limit the amount of players who are similar. Have a bunch of players that can do a bunch of different things. That just gives Kyle more flexibility to use them in a variety of different, personnel groupings, and then also plays and formations.
Agreed with you there, and I do agree there. Arnold just asked, did Marquez Scantling sign with a team? No, he has not yet. He is still available. I know he had been talking to Green Bay, but nothing has been finalized. Nothing has been done. That was, I think it was Friday.
He's also been talking to the Colts, and nothing happened there. There was rumors that San Francisco was in on him early in free agency. So far, nothing. I kind of thought once we heard Devontae Adams was traded that MVS was going to be more of a lock to go back to Green Bay. But so far, that hasn't happened. And we know Aaron Rodgers really likes MVS. So to me, that would make a lot of sense. But right now, he's playing the waiting game. I think he's waiting to get big money, and I don't think the big money's out there so far.
I agree with you. I don't think it's there either. I saw here, where was it at? Oh, Niner by Nature had asked about two different guys. What about Calvin Austin, the 5'8" wide receiver out of Memphis, I believe is what it was?
Memphis, yeah.
And Alec Pierce, 4'3" guy at 6'3". I think the guy that makes the most sense of the two is Pierce. Pierce makes the most sense. I don't think the Niners are going to go the route of a Calvin Austin when you just signed a guy like Ray McCloud that does very similar things. It may also be the reason why the Niners may not go after a guy like John Ross potentially as well, with the size and speed. You still think they're going to?
John Ross is a different kind of player than Ray McCloud.
That is true. That is true.
John Ross is a more take the top off, go straight down the field. Ray McCloud's more catch the ball on a quick screen or a quick slant, make someone miss. Ross is a guy that's going to stretch the field vertically, more like a Travis Benjamin, just a better version of.
I agree with you on that.
And we know Marquise Goodwin. Those are people that Kyle likes having in his offense. Think of Richie James when you think of Ray McCloud, right? Ray McCloud's just a far superior Richie James version. So Kyle's been trying to add these players to his roster for a long time. It's just finally he's getting ones that are better versions of the one he's had before. So the wide receiver room is so much better than it has been so far. And we only have 4. And Juwan Jennings isn't even officially signed yet.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's very true. But Alec Pierce, I think, makes the most sense in terms of the size and the speed, the dynamics in which he could play within the system. I think it'd be a good fit for the Niners at that spot. The only problem I have is he ran that 4.3. He measured off the charts in a lot of different categories at the combine. Our team's going to be looking at that, and like you said on an earlier stream, and he's basically Drake London light at this point. And someone go, hey, early mid-second, let's scoop him up.
Especially because you haven't seen London run yet. London's coming off the injured ankle, so he hasn't ran. But Pierce looks like he's that guy, and I liked some of his his athletic ability and the way he was able to float through the air. I thought he looked really good. He's a definite possibility for the 49ers if he was able to make it to 61. I think Christian Watson is now going to be a early, day 2 pick. Probably, the picks 35 through 45 look like that's where he's going to land.
That's what it feels like.
So I mean, he's on the way up. So yeah, someone like Alec Pierce maybe falling a little bit could land where the 49ers want to be. Do they want to use a pick 61 on a wide receiver? We don't know what they're going to get from Jimmy Garoppolo. They may not get anything near that. So we can't really count on that. So right now, 61, you go wide receiver. I don't think they're going to go safety, which early on, that was a lot of people's belief. I think edge rusher is a possibility. So there's guys around there. I think that is a hotbed for what pass rushers could be there. And since we're talking about pass rushers real quick, David Ajabu. Made me sick. The fact that he got hurt. This is a guy that had, top 15 talent, ridiculous edge rusher, great first step, was a slam dunk first round pick. Now, where does he go in the draft? And
so, question for you, because I've seen some people pose this, and I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this yet with David Ajabu. So this will be a first for me and a first for the Cutback crew. It's an Achilles. It's no joke. He may not be 100%. Maybe a draft and stash type thing. If he's available, back end 61 in the draft, right in that area, are you taking him?
I don't know if at 61. I think I would feel a lot better taking him at 93.
Okay.
The spot I would most want to take him is 105. That's your comp pick. So you would feel like, oh, that's great value at pick 105. I don't know if he would actually make it that far. We've seen this through the years where teams have taken a chance on a player that maybe got injured that was a top 15 talent. The 49ers used to do this all the time with Trent Baalke. So I don't know if the 49ers are going to want to take a player now that has an injury concern, but maybe with a third-round compensatory pick that you feel like, oh, that was just an extra pick anyways, you might be willing to do that. But he would be a big-time player for your team in 2023, but you need to make sure you get dynamic players for 2022 as well. Sure. I know everyone's throwing out there Cam Akers came back early.
He did.
But Cam Akers is also a very small running back compared to Ajabu, who's a very big physical defensive lineman who has to run on his edges when he's going around these big physical offensive linemen. It does make me have some concerns about his health and how quickly he could come back from Achilles. I don't think you would have him until 2023.
I agree with you on that. It would feel like it would take a little bit longer. Now, Arnold Salazar just said it. Pull a Trent Baalke. Trent Baalke would pull the trigger and get this guy ASAP. He's not wrong.
He's not. He's not wrong.
He's not wrong at all on that. I saw Megan said earlier, the video of him injured was awful. It seemed like no one cared. I don't want to judge anything from that video because it kind of cuts out as the injury is happening. So I don't know if there's people just in shock, if they were growing immediately to grab medical attention because they knew how serious it was.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure. It wasn't by any means a good look. The video was not a good look. And Mike Brown, welcome to the TCC. Thank you for the subscription. We appreciate it. You're going to have a fun time in here. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for Ajabu, Ant, but that just means that there's going to be some shifting on the board, and teams that were looking and targeting him now won't be going that route at that spot, which means guys are going to become maybe less available. Maybe team does something crazy at that spot or just before or just after that spot where maybe he would have gone and then someone else comes off the board, which may change up some teams' draft strategy. This kind of throws a monkey wrench into the middle of the draft now early in that first round.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be an interesting draft, and I think a lot of things are going to change once we get through the pro days. Some guys who didn't run, who didn't perform, are going to go through their workouts, and then we're going to get an idea of where they're at. But let's see who makes the meteoric rises. We saw the bumps already from the combine, where we've seen someone like Christian Watson move up close to 30, spots on a draft board. We've seen other guys fall. I think this is one of those things that's going to be fun to watch over the next several weeks as players move up and down the boards, as these teams kind of try to hide who they're going to get. Just like one of them is James Cook. Early on, it looked like this guy was going to go in the second round, and now I'm seeing him mocked all the way down into the late third round. He's a tremendous athlete who's very smooth. I would love the 49ers to be able to get him, with a compensatory pick, possibly, or even pick 93. I don't know if they're going to draft a running back that high, but for me, that's somebody that's enticing to what San Francisco likes to do, someone that would fit what Kyle Shanahan wants to do.
Accurate.
So I think that there's going to be a lot of options, and this thing's going to play out. But yeah, I do want an edge rusher, but now I always wanted a Ajabu, but my problem was we were never going to be able to get him. Now he's available, but in the same regard, I want an impact player that can help in 2022. So do I want to wait and go with like the edge rusher from Penn State and AK? Or if Boy Mafi makes it, I don't know if he's going to make it there now. But there are other options. Do you maybe go that route because they can make an impact now where you'd have to wait until next year for Ajabu?
For Ajabu. You're not wrong there. HR said Nick Bonito, another talented guy. Yeah. There's a lot.
Very
honestly,
athletic, yeah.
There is still so many talented guys that are going to be sitting there at 61 that could have immediate impact from San Francisco. The only real question answers is as Gerald Ford, inventor of the automobile, joins the DCC. Yeah. We appreciate that.
Welcome,
Mr.
Gerald Ford. Yeah.
Thank you for being here and a part of this. But I'm still not sure yet. I think there's a lot of different ways you could address it. You can go corner. You could go safety at 61 if the right guy was available.
Do you think they would still go corner?
They might. If the right guy is there, they might.
I mean, maybe nickel corner. But are you going to draft a nickel? Because the thing is, right now, you have Emmanuel Mosley, you have Tarvarius Ward, and you have Ambry Thomas.
You do?
You have, and speaking of Tarvarius Ward, did you see he did the jersey pick vote on his page?
I saw that.
Did you see what the jersey numbers were?
No.
35, which he's been wearing.
Okay.
And 2, which I found interesting because Jason Verrett normally wore 2.
True.
Does that mean Jason Verrett will not be returning to San Francisco, or is this as simple as it's available right now, so Tarvarius Ward could go get it?
It could be that.
Yeah.
It could just be that it's available and he's going to try and go get it. I don't think that sheds light one way or the other on the Jason Verrett saga and what's going to be happening there, but it is an interesting prospect and an interesting situation, unless the Niners are just throwing a curveball and told him, hey, put 2 in there just to get people thinking we're not interested in JV, and then we're going to go swoop him up. Look, I think 61 could be a lot of different things. I think the Niners could do a lot of different things at it. I don't think there's any one position right now that I'm sitting there looking at going, the Niners will do this at 61. The only position I don't think they're going to be going after at 61, other than obviously quarterback, which is not happening, or linebacker. I think the only other position that I'm pretty comfortable with that I don't think they'll get at 61 is receiver, because I think the guys that they want may not be.
Yeah, but I mean, couldn't they move up though?
They could if they moved up. That's a different story entirely.
So you don't think there's any chance Pierce would fall to 61, for instance?
I don't know. I think I personally value him higher than that. So in my head I'm going, I don't see the world in which it happens. It very well could happen. I don't know how.
Yeah.
I don't know how. What have we seen the trend recently for teams? There are so many teams that are wide receiver needy in terms of talent. And we've seen teams that have what we thought was stacked wide receiver groups drafting wide receivers in the first 3 rounds. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I think the one thing that could possibly help him slide is, besides Michael Pittman, there's no real comp for him. Now, he's more athletic, in my opinion, than Michael Pittman.
Agreed with you there.
Slower. But I think that the trend of the league, besides the 49ers, because we value blocking so much, is to go with a receiver that is quicker, like a Calvin Austin, or one of these guys that's more explosive. You've seen it last year with these guys, Elijah Moore, those guys going off the board, guys that could do a lot of different things. And you got teams are looking for players that can do Deebo Samuel kinds of things. But I'm not sure. You got George Pickens that could go in that area. Of course, you've got a lot of players that are going to be available. So, I mean, who knows if they could go 61. I wouldn't rule out receiver. I don't think it's as probable. I think offensive line, defensive line make the most sense. Edge rusher, in fact, makes the most sense. And maybe nickel corner, depending on who's available there. But I think they would rather not go with a rookie nickel corner to play this year, which means K'Wan Williams or Jason Verrett would make the most sense to come back. And I don't think there's another big name guy they would go after. So to me, that's what it is. It always seems to be edge or O-line in round 2 for the 49ers.
It feels like it, and it very well could be the draft where that is still the case. And HR with a $2 super chat. If we draft one offensive lineman, which position? I don't know if necessarily we go position. I think we go a guy that's flexible, a guy that could play center, a guy that could potentially play guard and tackle, a guy that can do as many things as humanly possible. I think we've seen this now from Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. This is what they tend to look for in linemen in the draft. So I think if you're going that route, you might see maybe a guy like Zion Johnson in a Boston College who has the ability to potentially do all those things. I don't know, though.
I like Lindstrom from Boston College.
I love Lindstrom from Boston College.
I think if I was going to draft a interior offensive lineman, I would go Lindstrom in the second round.
I like that.
And play him behind Alex Mack for one season, let him develop, and that way you're ready to roll. I mean, there's a potential that next year in 2023, a new look offensive line with an interior of Lindstrom, Banks, and Moore could be available for the 49ers. And in fact, if McGlinchey does move, it could be more at right tackle. But that's the thing. You got to be prepared for when this happens, when this changeover happens. You know you have Trent Williams on the outside. He's going to be a stabilizing force in this room for years. But you have to make sure that you're starting to get guys that can come in. Now, the question will be, however, Kyle Shanahan has normally went with a veteran center. Weston Richburg was one of their first big signings.
Agreed.
Then they went, this way with Alex Mack. It hasn't normally been a guy that is a young player. And they had a lot of great young centers they could have drafted last year. They passed on them. And they were centers that could have played guard and then translated to center once Mack was done. So to me, it kind of does signal that maybe they're a little bit leery of young centers. And in fact, that's why they currently always want to go for veterans. So it might be that they're just always going to address the center position with a veteran center.
They very well could. Very well could. The Niners don't typically go young at the center position, so they may get a guy who can do a variety of different things, thinking they can keep this guy around for a few years until he becomes the vet and could potentially take over. That is something that could happen. Would you consider Julio as more of a possession receiver, says Sean, like a better version of Jennings? I'm still not ready to put the Julio as a possession receiver type guy. Like that's all he's good for now is spots, possessions. I still think Julio Jones is one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. It's just health at this point. It really is. It's just availability, being able to be on the field.
Yeah, he's not quite a possession receiver at this point in his career, but he's trending that way.
He's getting closer.
He's slowly just going to get, he's going to lose his speed. He's going to lose his acceleration. And he's going to turn into that guy. It's a similar thing you saw from Larry Fitzgerald. As time went on, the things that he was able to do on the field just changed. So I think at first, yeah, you're going to have some plays that he could possibly do, but I don't know what Julio's value is going to be on the open market. We know Tampa Bay is interested in bringing him in. They brought in Russell Gage. What would his role look like there? I think the 49ers would have interest, but at what cost? What is the price tag going to be? I think they would more like to go with a guy that can take the top off. I don't think Julio is that guy at this point in his career. This isn't 3-4 years ago when Julio was at his prime. So I think that he would make sense for the 49ers, but only if they weren't able to latch on to one of these guys that can really take the top off, like a Christian Watson or a MVS, for instance. Then you could bring him in. But his name still is scary for defensive backs because he's got a lot of ability. And with that frame that he has, he can still be one heck of a possession receiver. And he can still catch the ball without slowing down. So run after the catch is still big for Julio Jones.
That it is there. And Gary, you are correct. TCC, hit that like button right this instant. Let's get this thing up. Let's get this thing up. We're sitting at 48 currently. Let's get this thing up to Trent Williams. Get this thing up to 71 likes. 71 likes. That's the goal tonight, TCC. Get that thing up there to 71 likes indeed. And look, I think there's still a lot of things the Niners could do. I did see Power Fitness earlier, and he gave a list of needs in the draft. So let's see this.
Okay.
We need a center, a right tackle, a D end, a DB, a safety, a running back, wide receiver, a head coach, and a GM. We need all. We need it all, baby.
Oh, just go complete clear out, complete cleanup. I like that.
Time for the full rebuild, and according to Power Fitness.
And thanks, Sean. We really appreciate that. Thanks for saying that. It means a lot.
Hey, we appreciate just everyone being here, everyone chatting and talking it up with us. I know JLE2 had asked a little earlier also about tight end. Tight end question mark. Do the Niners need to address the tight end room, do things in the tight end room? Yeah, I personally believe so. I think the Niners need to go after tight end options. They need to, exhaust all options. I would have preferred them address it at least one time in free agency and bring in a guy and bring in a name. There's still options and people they could go after. But it may be trending towards the Niners drafting a tight end and bringing a guy in those mid to late rounds.
Yeah, I don't think they would really roll with Jordan Matthews as the third tight end. I mean, they could.
I think they want him to earn it, though, right?
If he would have to earn it. They're definitely going to bring in somebody. I mean, they're not going to go in the season with 3 tight ends. Ross Dwelly's currently not signed. So
True.
I think that,
True.
yeah, there's options out there that they would like to go. I think they would have loved to win Austin Hooper, but not for $6 million.
No.
So maybe you're going to address it in the draft, or maybe there is still a low price free agent that you could bring in. Michael Pruitt, of course, is still available. Maybe they go that route.
That was the next name I was actually going to bring up to you, was Michael Pruitt. And if you thought that was an option, look, I think you and I both believe if he had been healthy, he would have made that roster this past season. HR, by the way, with the how could you leave out OG? Power Fitness. How could you leave out the offensive guard?
Yeah, there you go.
How dare you? And Ian, you were not incorrect. That is one heck of a list that our boy Power Fitness just dropped in there in the chat. And Brad Jones, is Oster Hoopin still out there? No, he is not. He signed. Who did he? Wait, who?
Tennessee Titans.
It was Tennessee, right? Okay.
Yeah, and then they traded for Robert Woods. So they have a new look receiving core and receiving group there.
Which was neat. I mean, the tight end upgrade was needed because Anthony Fursker is just not that guy. Just not that dude for him. And Michael Pruitt was a nice addition, but he's a better tight end 2 option than tight end 1. So Tennessee gets off of Julio's contract. They're going to definitely do some reworking with Woods' contract and maybe even an extension or a restructure to free up some more cap space there so they have more ability and availability to do things. They've already made moves like cutting Roger Saffold and freeing up cap space. So the Tennessee Titans are making moves and trying to shore up that offense and provide weapons for Tannehill and be able to still effectively run the football and maybe address some things on the defense. But look, at the end of the day, the Niners aren't going to overpay for certain players. I think we've seen this now the last couple of free agency periods. The Niners set a number. If the number goes over, they're just not going to do it. If the number doesn't go over the number they've set for a guy or have tagged a guy at, then they're going to do everything they can to make it work. They were able to make it work with Charvarius Ward. You were able to bring in a couple of special teams kind of role-playing, filling guys with incentive-laden contracts where they're not maybe getting a whole lot of guaranteed money up front. And the further we drag out towards the draft, the more likely some of these guys that are currently sitting out there in the free agent market are going to get closer to taking less to go play because they know teams are going to start filling holes in the draft.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to wait until after the draft. If you wait until after the draft, there'll be some spots that are open, but it'll be slim pickings. So you want to make sure you get signed before the draft, especially some of these edge rushers. I think some of these veteran edge rushers are going to want to get signed by a current NFL club. That way they don't have to worry about some of these young cats getting drafted and them losing their spots. So we saw what happened last year with Ingram and Justin Houston, where they signed late, but they didn't get very much money at all. So they got to go out there and get what they can. So there's going to be opportunities for these free agents. The 49ers are just being patient. They're waiting for some of these guys to come back. If we remember right, last year, that's exactly what happened as well, right? We had K'Wan Williams, and some of these guys went out there and checked on their availability out there in the open market, and most of them came back. This time, it could be free agents that aren't with the 49ers, that are out there looking around, finding out what their market is, and maybe they're going to come back to San Francisco and accept maybe an offer that the 49ers have reached out to their agent about. So this is one of those things where you let it play out, and if you have the opportunity to get someone at a very affordable deal, you go ahead and do it.
Agreed with you there. The poll just ended, by the way. Do the 49ers need to lower their expectations for Jimmy G? And 58% of the Cutback crew said yes. 41% said no. Almost right down the middle, Ant. So TCC and the faithful Ant, not sure. Not sure if they need to be really lowering that value or keeping it right where it's at. I think the reality is that 49ers fans just want to be able to move on from this saga. So we'll see. Brad asked an interesting question, and this was a question I was actually going to ask you in a little bit. Might as well get to it now, Ant. No better time. What do you guys think? When do you guys think that Jimmy is gone? Could it be this time next week, or do you think it's going to be longer?
It could be either. I mean, there's no timetable on the Jimmy Garoppolo trade. I thought that the timetable was, in fact, once Deshaun Watson got moved. I thought the market would completely reveal itself. That has not happened because, once again, it appears that Indianapolis Colts and the 49ers are the ones that are sitting there staring at each other when the dust settles. So until one of them is willing to move, there doesn't seem to be a reason to move. So is that the draft? Is that something else happening? Is that, Baker Mayfield getting traded to Seattle and Matt Ryan going back to Atlanta? Maybe at that point, the Colts are like, okay, well, there's no one left. Like, we really need Jimmy Garoppolo because we can't go in there and draft a quarterback and expect this team to win in the playoffs with a rookie quarterback. Don't know. I mean, because they're definitely not going to turn to a Marcus Mariota. Jameis Winston's gone. So the available amount of quarterbacks does limit, what could happen for Indianapolis. So at that point, maybe you would think you would have leverage, but it appears to me that both teams feel they have leverage and maybe they don't. And so they're just sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. But there's no guarantee when this thing's going to happen. And I don't think anyone actually knows when it will. We're all just on a wait and see. I mean, and that's one of the scary things about this is we're waiting and seeing while other players are signing for other teams. And you wonder how much of an impact Jimmy Garoppolo's contract has on the fact the Niners are being somewhat quiet in free agency.
Very true. And Tommy Huxley with the $2 super chat. Lowered expectations. Just wants the Niners to lower them expectations, Ant, in a very sultry. Tommy, I want you creating a lowered expectations song. That's what I want. That's the next thing I want to be able to watch and listen to.
Thanks, Arnold.
Appreciate that, Arnold. Ian said Jimmy will be the next to go. 49ers Lakers for life says, who knows? Tired of guessing at this point. How about the Niners? Who is more attainable for the 49ers if they trade up in the draft? Christian Watson or Alec Pierce? I think Alec Pierce is, because I think Christian Watson. Do you think Christian Watson would go first? Because I feel like that would be the case.
Christian Watson's going to go first.
I agree between those two guys.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, there is, even though they're the same size, there's more explosion from Christian Watson.
Yes.
Watson is more explosive. He runs a 4.28, a 4.26. I can't remember exactly.
I think it was a 4.28.
Anyways, it's a 4.2. It's
still stupidly fast.
It's really fast. Where Pierce is a 4.37, which I know it's not a big difference, but it is the difference between a little bit of separation. You could talk about, I guess, level of competition, but it was not that far off. I mean, Cincinnati played in some big games, but I think you could argue for both. So I would say Watson's the better athlete. Watson, to me, appears like the better prospect, but both of them are very nice second-round picks. So I think if you ended up with either one, you're excited, but I think Watson's the most explosive guy that I feel could take your offense to the next level.
Agreed with you there. And JLA just asked, maybe we're thinking about the tight end 2 position wrong. Maybe the Niners are actually looking for a better blocking tight end so Kittle can be freed up to run the routes.
There you go.
Possibly could be the case. The question is who is that guy, though? Who is that guy that's out there that you feel that great about in the blocking aspect? I don't know if that guy exists to the level of Kittle. I don't know if that guy exists.
You're not going to find someone to the level of Kittle, but what you're going to do is maybe find somebody that can get by to that level. Michael Pruitt, to me, was someone they brought in with that intention last year. They really felt like, I think he could have been a third tight end for the 49ers. He's an improvement over Charlie Warner in the passing game, but he's a better blocker than all of the 49ers tight ends not named George Kittle. So if you could use him in that way, I think, that would make sense. That is an avenue you think they would go. They could. Maybe it's not a receiving threat. Maybe it is the second tight end being, somebody else. I do think, though, that there is a trend for the 49ers to actually move to more 4 receiver sets or 3 receivers, with George Kittle on the field. So I think there's going to be some different opportunities for George Kittle that aren't blocking and him in the receiving game, because I think 49ers are more willing to run a more wide open offense with Trey Lance at the helm.
Agreed. And Lance Fua, thank you for subscribing. Welcome to the TCC. Stream Elements. Lovely in the chat, but come on, you're timing out our boy Niner by Nature for a mistype that didn't even have anything wrong, and now you're not even giving us notifications on the screen. You got to step up your game, Stream Elements. You really have to. Lou asked, curious guys, what position do you feel the 49ers are drafting in the second round? Based on what you've seen right now from San Francisco with the 49ers, what are you thinking?
I don't, let's go by process of elimination. We know it's not quarterback.
Accurate.
I do not believe that it's going to be corner either. I think Charvarius Ward signals that it won't be a cornerback at 61. I think after 61, 93, 105, 133, those are positions where they could go cornerback. Okay. Because you want to add depth next to Ambry Thomas, Deommodore Lenoir, possibly in the nickel. But if they don't address the nickel corner, then you have to leave open more of a possibility of them going that route. I don't believe now they go safety at 61, which I thought they did before. Now you're moving to the offensive side of the ball. I think you have wide receiver if you can get an explosive player to pair with Trey Lance, because you need Trey to have all the weapons that he can possibly have. Offensive line, because there are questions there. You can bring in somebody that can compete with the guys you currently have, then that makes sense. I don't think they go tight end, so you can go ahead and take tight end off the board at 61. And I don't think they go running back at 61 either.
Fair.
So there's are kind of your options. Possible nickel corner, explosive wide receiver, and then I think offensive line. Those 3 to me make the most sense for the 49ers at pick 61. After that, it gets a little bit more revealing. But I think also on the work up to the draft, what we see from them in free agency, how many holes, if they bring back K'Wan Williams, they might not address nickel corner, so that comes off the board. True. So it slowly just shifts as they continue to make moves.
Agreed with you on that. It definitely does shift and would shift into different positions and different situations and them addressing different things. I still feel like at this moment in time, based on what we know about this team's strengths and weaknesses, it feels like the best option, or the option they'll take, is maybe offensive line, seeing as they did that last year or have lost Lincoln Tomlinson. Maybe they'll try and shore up some things on the other side and bring in a guy who can compete with, potentially, we would think, Daniel Brunskill at that other guard spot. Maybe that's the option. It feels like that could be the route.
Would they draft a traditional offensive guard like they did with Aaron Banks, or would they go at the offensive tackle spot with a draft pick of somebody that played offensive tackle in college but can translate to guard in the NFL?
I think if they feel he's the best option, I think there's certain tackles that they may do that with, and that's not every tackle that's going to be in this draft.
Right. Because when you look at the players that they've drafted, they have been offensive tackles that they've been able to move. They traded for Laken Tomlinson, who was a guard, of course.
Correct.
But he was a 5th-round pick from the Detroit Lions, so it's a different team. It wasn't like the 49ers. The 49ers drafting Aaron Banks was completely off-brand. Colt McKivitz was a tackle. Mike McGlinchey's a tackle. Jalen Moore, a tackle.
Daniel Brunskill, undrafted guy, tackle.
Yeah, you got all these guys that it just seems like they stack on tackles. So I was just wondering if that's something you thought they would go with. I do think offensive line makes a lot of sense. But to me, if I was the 49ers, I would go explosive player. I would go with the most explosive player that you have available at 61, whether that is explosive defensive end, somebody that can get after the quarterback really fast and change the game that way, or I would go with an explosive wide receiver that can help, Trey Lance, not just this year, but in the future, because I do think the 49ers offense needs to get more dynamic. You can't score 17 points in the NFC Championship game and win. The Rams, all these other teams are loading up. Now, the Rams made a little bit of a lateral move, in my opinion, between Allen Robinson and Robert Woods. But I think that these teams are loading up, and the NFC being so wide open, get explosive weapons that can make things happen, either getting to the quarterback or catching the ball from the quarterback.
I like those. Both of them involve quarterback, and both of them would make a big difference for San Francisco. I do agree with you there. Cam49 earlier had said as well, I think even if Jimmy G was off the team, we still would have been stagnant during this first wave of free agency. I tend to agree with Cam on that. I don't know if the Niners necessarily would have went out after some big names, and maybe what we would have seen was them signing more mid-level guys during the first wave of free agency, but I don't know if they necessarily would have went after the names that I think you and I both wanted them to. Cam49 also said, I just think we can still make some good minor moves in the second and third waves of free agency because if we don't bring back a guy like Tart, then we're going to need a safety. I think the Niners, Tart is still an option for the San Francisco 49ers, and I think you and I still think there's a couple of, well, more than a couple. There's a handful of guys the Niners could go after. There is some edge rushing depth. There's still guys like Arden Key that you can re-sign. There's still names like Phillip Lindsay in the running back room that you could go in that you and I both think would be an upgrade as your third down running back and a receiving option for the Niners, whose also speed could translate very well in Shanahan's scheme and system.
Yeah, I think he would be a nice opposite of Elijah Mitchell. I think they would work good in tandem because of the different things that he adds. But the way he runs, his running style fits what the 49ers do with their zone scheme. So to me, Phillip Lindsay is a natural fit. Marlon Mack out there as well that you can use. Cordero Patterson obviously went back to Atlanta, so he's off the board. So any thoughts of him coming and playing a wing back style in the 49ers offense is out. But you do have options that are, low budget guys that you could bring in, and potentially they could elevate this room a little bit. They will not do the same things Raheem Mostert did, but you're hopeful that they can stay healthy and be able to, contribute that way. I think there are running backs in the draft as well, but running back is a definite hole the 49ers need to address, whether that's in free agency or the draft. That is by far one that they do. The questions with safety are, do they really have to address this? I do think Tart is still, a possibility. Tart is a good football player, and so I think that him being able to compete, but that's the key. Have somebody that can compete with him to start. Push him to another level, make it so this isn't so easy for him to take. I think that's somewhere, and they still have to address nickel corner. I just don't think you can go into the year and think that, Ambry Thomas is going to play on the outside and Moses is going to play in the nickel, or the fact that maybe it's Deommodore Lenoir. I don't think Deommodore Lenoir is ready to play that corner spot. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I didn't see the development he made during the year, but watching him play on the outside against Philly and then early against Green Bay, it didn't make me feel really comfortable about Deommodore Lenoir stepping in against some of these big-time receivers like Tyler Lockett, and Cooper Kupp in the NFC West. So I'm a little nervous about that case.
It gives me a pause. It's a big fat pause. It's a huge gigantic pause with Demo. I don't think that he's a bust by any means or not a capable player. I just don't think he's ready right now. I don't think he's strong enough, and I don't think he's been experienced enough. And I think he's got some technique stuff he's got to clean up. And the minute they moved him into the slot during some of the stuff, he seemed to struggle a little bit with the transition from outside to the interior. There were definitely flashes and some promise in preseason. That was great. He got the start early because of injury, and the first couple of games it was shaky, but it got the job done. But he got exposed in that Green Bay game, and he got exposed hard. And in a surprising turn of event, Devontae Adams is a really good wide receiver and can expose a lot of guys, Ant. But you saw the experience as well.
Pretty much all of the corners the 49ers were running out there at that time could get exposed by Devontae Adams.
You mean Josh Norman was solid? What do you
Josh Norman, I mean, just has to grab everything and everyone.
It's accurate.
Yeah, he's
still grabbing.
He's just like Barney. He's reaching for a hug for everyone. I think this is.
I love you.
Yeah, it's one of those things where they were struggling at the time. Deommodore Lenoir was the one that showed the most promise early. Ambry Thomas passed him at some point. I do believe they have something there in Ambry Thomas, but I think it's a little bit farther away than anyone thought. I think they were just trying to get by at the end of the season. They were hoping Ambry Thomas could continue to elevate his game, and I thought he played admirably. I did. I didn't think it was one of those things where he ever looked out of place or underwater or not able to handle the situations that were there. But them going out and get Charvarius Ward was a direct signal that, hey, we needed to improve the cornerback room, and we were going to go do it in a big way, and Ambry Thomas is not ready. So now it's going to be Emmanuel Mosley, and it's going to be Charvarius Ward at the corner spots. So Ambry Thomas is going to sit there and develop. So is Ambry Thomas the eventual replacement for Emmanuel Mosley? I think that's the question. The fact that 49ers haven't reached out to Mosley about an extension, or at least haven't worked one out. They may have reached out to him, but the fact they haven't worked one out yet means Ambry Thomas could be the eventual starter in 2023.
It's true.
But they're definitely trying to improve this room. So somewhere in this draft, they're going to take another corner. They're going to bring somebody in that can compete with Ambry Thomas and eventually, compete for that Emmanuel Mosley spot. But right now, it's going to be Ward and Mosley.
It appears that way, right? All signs are pointing that way. Norman and his flag football, says Ian Sharp, with lots of dots, Ant. That's what it felt like. Look, don't get me wrong. There was some stuff with Norman early where it was like, okay, we can do this for a little bit of time. This guy playing sparingly is fine. It was just the amount of snaps he was having to play. Jason Verrett going down, you're not anticipating that. Emmanuel Mosley not being available as well was just an issue for the Niners. He was admirable, and the way he stepped up, and the peanut punches and all the forced fumbles were great for earlier in the season, but it would have been a lot better to have a better coverage guy out there. And I think the Niners have not only gone about trying to shore that up, and they've gone about it in a big way. The big contract for Charvarius Ward makes sense. Now you have guys like Ambry Thomas, who are sitting there as the rotational guys at the moment.
Yeah,
but we've seen some positive things from. The room is definitely already drastically better than where it finished last season, and you only had to make one big move in order to make that the case. So that's a positive. And we just got a super chat from Jag, $5. Safety, Petrie Baylor, Cook Cincinnati, Edge Benito, Pascal from Kentucky, or Cam Thomas from San Diego State. A great show as usual, guys. Jag, we appreciate it, and some good names in that group, Ant, and definitely names the Niners will be taking a look at and trying to see what happens. But as of right now, we don't know. We don't know what the full force of what the Niners are going to be wanting to go after and wanting to draft, because free agency's still going. The Niners can still make moves, and they're going to have to make some moves because I don't know if anyone knows this yet. They're not close to filling out that 90-man roster.
Yeah, I think that it's it's one of those things where you've seen Jalen Petrie has been all over the boards of the 49ers since the Senior Bowl. I mean, this is just something that has happened continuously, that Petrie's been on the 49ers radar as far as what some of the people think. I don't know if he is or not, but he's a good football player. I like his film. I watched a lot of his film. In fact, today I was watching Jalen Petrie. I thought he did a pretty good job. So I think that there's options there. I think edge rusher's always one that you could go. Pascal, we talked about the other day. I think that he's somebody that can transition inside to a 3-tech. So he's someone I'm going to keep an eye on as he continues to work out. As we get closer to the draft, let's see if he is an edge rusher. If he maybe plays a 5-tech in the 3-4, or if he ends up moving interior to a 3-tech in the 4-3. If he does, he can make sense for the 49ers as somebody that could come in and compete with like Maurice Hurst or one of those guys and be an obvious pass downs 3-tech who's going to develop his run stopping ability.
Very, very much the case, and very, very true as well. We're going to see. We're going to see what happens. And Cam, we appreciate the questions, my guy. Keep them coming. We try and get to all of them. And if we miss questions, we apologize. 115 of you out here, a lot of comments coming through. We don't have slow mode on either. So when you guys start commenting, it flies. So if we miss something you really wanted answered, just hit that super chat. Hit that super chat button. Put that question out there. We'll get pinged. We'll get notified here. Can't miss the super chat questions, and they're highlighted in gigantic, and they stay pinned to the page for a certain amount of time. So really easy to go after. Tommy Huxley saying, re-sign Colbert. No. I saw the Adrian Colbert stuff going out there, reaching out to John Lynch as well. A lot of people pushing that. In fact, you were the one I think that initially retweeted that.
Of course I retweeted.
Trying to make it happen. I love it.
I want that phone call to happen. I thought that was interesting. Adrian Colbert's one that's been staying involved in the community and really talking about, different things amongst the 49ers, and also talking about his personal experiences with Jimmy Garoppolo in the locker room. So I thought he added a lot to the conversation this week. I know he's going to be, on, I think it's is it Fourth and Gold podcast this week, celebrating their 200th episode. So, if you have a chance, check out that. I think that he's somebody that's interesting. You know what I mean? He was even saying he's going to play special teams. To me, it was a lot of fun. I have no problems with it. I did not mind him as a player. I thought he was a very hard-hitting safety who was a good special teamer. Do I think the 49ers are going to bring him back? Probably not. But the whole thing was fun, and I think he's a good dude. So
he is a good dude.
Yeah, he's a good dude, and I kind of like his involvement in 49er land. So I hope it continues, and I hope somebody gives him a shot because I think he still deserves to play in the league.
Hey, you never know, man. He could end up with a 90-man roster. You never quite know. It is possible. Whatever we draft in the second round will be something that we could not fix in free agency due to availability or cost. I'm thinking wide receiver or O-line in that order, says Lou. Look, I think the explosivity factor is not something you can definitely, maybe not think about, but be looking away from and thinking the Niners don't want to address it. They saw what the Rams did last year, right? Going all in, going after and drafting guys and making moves and things of that nature at the wide receiver room to get explosive guys. If the Niners feel like that wide receiver group, there's explosivity across the board, and that one of those guys or a couple of those guys could make a big difference for the offense and a big difference for Trey and just how the offense can function and operate, I don't see Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch being like, yeah, let's not do that. Let's not make this room more dynamic.
Yeah, I think that the 49ers are looking for somebody to take the top off. That's why you're seeing the conversations, or at least the rumored conversations with Will Fuller and MVS. I think those right away are automatic signals. The 49ers are looking for somebody to do the Marquise Goodwin, Travis Benjamin role. They're looking for somebody to do that. Who the perfect guy is? Is it MVS? I wouldn't sign him to a huge money deal, but he's somebody I'd be excited about. He's 16th best, blocking wide receiver in the league. That's something the 49ers want to do. So adding him, a speed guy that could also block, is enticing. Adding a Christian Watson in the draft is exciting because he played with Trey Lance already. They're going to have that availability and that comfort factor. So I think that those are a couple of names. But, also I would love for them to reach out to the Houston Texans about Brandon Cooks. I know Cooks isn't a tall receiver, but I think he's somebody that would fit what the 49ers want to do. And the fact that he can run every single route in the tree and he can run it well, and he's a guy that consistently gets 1,000 yards receiving, he would be dynamic in this group because he has a different skill set than every other wide receiver that we have right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Luke Luna, have a good night, my guy, as well. Thank you for stopping by. And I agree with you that the Niners I feel they're in a good position. I feel they're in a really great position. I feel like they've addressed some things. They definitely try to make sure that the special teams room right now is in a better spot. And look, they haven't really done a whole lot, Ant, but I don't necessarily believe they're in a much worse position than they were at the end of the season last year with how weak the NFC has gotten. The Niners aren't maybe feeling like they need to be in a hurry. They may be looking around the rest of the NFC right now and go, we got like 4 teams that we got to try and catch. And I mean, we were pretty much within grasp of all of these teams at the end of the season last year. Let's just take our time. Let's take our time. We feel we can get some guys in the draft that make up some of that gap. We can wait and see what happens with some of these other names before we go out and start paying money. Maybe we can get some of these impact guys that we think could be huge impacts for us on a little bit cheaper salaries and contracts. So that is probably, I imagine, it's weighing and having some sort of factor in what's going on with the free agency and maybe why it's not moving as quickly as we all would like it to in terms of bringing in guys, signing names, filling out this 90-man roster. But we'll see. We'll see indeed. And I saw Dave R. also said, hello, guys. Do you think the Niners will wait till the draft? After that, waiting to see if there are going to be good free agents available that they haven't signed yet, or we're just done and we're not going to make another signing?
I wouldn't be surprised to see another one, but I think this is going to be slow. I don't think you're going to see a flurry of moves now. These moves are all going to be more strategic now. So we're just waiting to see what they do. But, there's going to be players that are out there checking their market value right now. And as their market value continues to reveal itself and they don't, get more value, they're going to come back to the 49ers possibly with, maybe the Niners are closer to what they were actually going to get on the open market, and then you can strike a deal. So I think right now there's a lot of players that are in that wave 2, wave 3 of free agency that are waiting to see if a team is going to offer them the type of contract that they want, the type of security. And maybe at one point they will come back to the 49ers, who have offered a 1 or 2 year deal, to bring them in. So I don't think it's over yet in free agency, but I definitely think it is grinding to a slower pace. And I think that's how it's going to continue through the draft. And over the next couple weeks, the only way I can see it picking up a little bit for the 49ers is if they move Jimmy Garoppolo, here pretty soon. If they do move him, they will have the financial ability to sign a couple of guys.
It'll be like Christmas in March, April.
To a point. I think they'll do that, but they're also going to keep, the money that they need for draft picks available.
Very, very possible and very, very true. I like hearing from Tommy Huxley. All we need is D Ford to play one down, 3rd and long, and problem solved, says Tommy. He also said, rub-a-dub-dub, hit that gosh darn sub button. I really do like that, Tommy.
Well said, Tommy.
A lot. We are adamant fans of people hitting the subscribe button and joining the TCC, as well as the like button. So do as Tommy says. Last thing you want is Tommy getting on you in the chat. He's relentless, Ant. He's relentless. Jack said, who is the dynamic pass rusher opposite of Bosa? Is it Ebicom? Is it Key? Do they need to go young in the draft? Maybe it's a free agent. Is there still guys out there you think the Niners can go after to maybe be an explosive fit? Or is it at this point draft or bust?
I think there's still, a few guys that are available that have that ability, but I don't think that there's anyone left that's like completely dynamic. I think there's more veterans that are a little bit longer in the tooth. Jadeveon Clowney doesn't fit, so I wouldn't go that route. And if you're talking about Ingram, does he have that much left in the tank that he could be that dynamic force opposite of Nick Bosa?
Same question with Justin Houston.
Yeah, so I think that they might end up going the Arden Key / Jordan Willis route, where you have Ebicom is actually the more explosive guy that's going to be playing opposite of Nick Bosa. And then they just go with the rotation with Jordan Willis playing with that second wave group and Arden Key coming in on obvious pass downs. To me, that's what it seems to go as. But we also know Kerry Hyder's available as well. But I would definitely strike on one of these fast, explosive edge rushers in the draft because they have the potential to take on that D Ford role that has been missing since 2019 because really he hasn't been able to play or stay healthy. And that role was so pivotal to the 49ers defense in 2019. That gold rush was spectacular with those two guys collapsing the pocket and then the two interior guys being able to collapse it there and just completely smashing the quarterback consistently. That is something they want. It's something they need, but they have to find that guy. And right now, I don't think there's one available in free agency, but there could be one in the draft.
Definitely could be one in the draft. I don't know if the free agency options are going to make sense. Someone just said, the Quest for Six said, what about Zadarius Smith? It's going to be too much money. He didn't, opt out of that contract to take less money. He opted out of that contract to try and get paid. He saw what everyone else was going for, and he knows a team's going to be willing to pay obscene amounts of cash.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? The 49ers weren't willing to pay Chandler Jones effectively $17.5 million a year. Zadarius Smith is probably going to want pretty close to that. I mean, if we think the 49ers are going to offer that, then he would be a great fit. He is a dynamic guy out there that, could potentially play that outside spot opposite of Bosa. I just don't know if they're going to pay that amount of money.
Let me ask you something. Could you see a world in which if the Niners feel they can get close to that number and maybe get him in, where they do something like, get a contract in place, an agreement in place with him, and cut someone like Samson Ebicom to free up $7 million so that can go back towards a guy like Zadarius Smith?
You could, but then you're going to lose Samson Ebicom.
It's true.
I think the key is actually adding a player such as Zadarius Smith while holding on to Ebicom and letting him take over the Arden Key role. Because that. You're going to save money, but there's not going to be that much money difference between Arden Key and Samson Ebicom. But Ebicom was very much developing last year, playing the outside edge so much. So I think that might be a route, but Zadarius Smith, to me, he's going to be really expensive. I don't know if the 49ers are going to be willing to pony up the amount of cap it's going to take to get one player. If they believe they're one player away, maybe they do.
That's very true. Luke Luna with the $1.49 super chat a little bit ago, and he's got his popcorn ready.
Yeah.
He's got his popcorn ready, just so everyone knows. And definitely get yours ready as well. He's waiting for something to happen. He's waiting for news to break and drama unfold, Ant. And in theory, it could unfold at any point in time, but as of right now, we're all just holding our breath. We're just holding our breath and hoping something is going to happen. Tommy Huxley wants to know where his boy Daniel Harley is. Not here tonight, Tommy. I think he's waiting for the breaking news. He's waiting for the breaking news. Dan Agnotti had asked about Zadarius Smith, but he also wanted to know about Calais Campbell, another guy that's a little bit older, and maybe getting long in the tooth. There's guys like him, Justin Houston as well. I just don't know what the money's going to look like for these guys. I don't know what they want. Are they at mercenary status yet, where they're just playing for Super Bowls and championships? Do they still want to get paid and make a good chunk of cash? Because if that's the case, San Francisco's probably not the place for that.
I think Calais Campbell's at that point in his career. He's about to turn 36 if he's not 36 already. I think the thing with him, though, is I don't know if he fits the 49ers scheme, because I think you'd have to play inside. You'd have to play him at the 3-tech position, because I think he's really ready-made to play a 5-tech in the 3-4. I mean, I know that is exactly what Armstead and Buckner were originally drafted to play. So, yeah, potentially Calais Campbell could play on the outside. If this was Calais Campbell 5 years ago, yes, he would fit what the 49ers do in the wide 9. He'd be an explosive player off the edge, and he'd be able to do a lot of great things, including stop the run, because he's dynamic in that way. Hey, I just don't think this version of Calais Campbell is going to consistently be able to play out on the edge in the wide 9. So he's more a fit for a 4-3 3-tech, and I like the guy a lot. I just don't think he's an actual fit for the 49ers now, unless they feel they need to have another 3-tech to come in after Armstead, but I don't think they do. I think they have plenty of guys behind him.
I like that. And Jag with the $2 super chat. Hope you and your family stay blessed.
Thanks, Jag. Appreciate
you as well, Jag. You as well, indeed. And I'm seeing some Pickle Ricks in the chat. Megan is not wrong. Do not get me started with Rick and Morty. Don't do that. You don't want that. There's a football stream, and I think they are viewing next year as a throwaway until they see what they have in Lance. Don't get invested in winning this year, because they are not Spy v Spy. He is already throwing this year out the window. Interesting. I don't think the Niners are in that boat at all. I don't think they're trying to do that, but it's interesting to see how different people are feeling about this, because some people may be feeling like lack of moves and things of that nature means they want to see how Trey handles adversity and how he could potentially lead this football team. It's an interesting thought process. Do you think that's something the Niners could be doing this year?
I don't know if they could be doing this. What I do know is that's not what I would be doing. I mean, I don't know how Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch could look at, Trent Williams, George Kittle, Eric Armstead, and these guys that are veterans on the football team.
Kyle Juszczyk as well, Jimmy Ward.
And say to them, look, we want you to kind of just, we're gonna just see what we got. We're not really gonna go in to win a Super Bowl. But don't worry, next year we will go all in. Because remember, they asked George Kittle to take a pay cut. They asked Eric Armstead to take a pay cut and restructure their contract. So I think that the fact that they did this and they kind of pushed the money down the line would signal that they still expect to be competitive. Now, do I think that they think right now they're a Super Bowl caliber football team? No. But I think they're trying to build that way. I think that they think they can still get the pieces that they need to be that team, because they were so close last year. So I don't think it's far off to believe that they're competitive enough to get to the playoffs. The question is, I don't think this is going to be a complete waste of a season. The question is, are they going to make the necessary moves to put them over the top to possibly beat the Rams and beat Tampa Bay and get to the Super Bowl? And then whoever is waiting for them is going to have a star quarterback from the AFC. It's going to be a tremendous season.
You're not wrong.
But the question is, do the 49ers believe that they can get over the top with the pieces that they think they can pick up? Maybe they do. I don't think, though, that right now they're sitting there going, you know what, 2022 is not our year, 2023 is. I think they're looking at like, we might be able to get it done in 2022, but 2023, we're for sure going to get it done.
I think they're definitely in that boat. I wouldn't be surprised to see 2023 be the all-in year, where they go all in terms of, bringing in some big names and trying to blend, right, the things they've done really well, which is draft talent, develop talent, have an eye for mid-level talent as well, undrafted guys, bringing them in and making them fit in the scheme, and also going out and paying potentially obscene fees for talented players and well-established and well-known players in terms of what you can get, that you have that depth in those pieces. I could see that being the 2023 year. I think right now the Niners have a formula that's worked. They have a formula with drafting guys. They have a formula with the type of players that they've brought into this organization, who they target in free agency, and some of the lower-level guys sticking out and working for San Francisco, as well as just undrafted names that they end up bringing in, whether that's in the draft or once undrafted guys hit the free agency market. They've done a really good job with this and bringing guys in. K'Waun Williams is one of those guys as well that they brought in kind of that undrafted role. Wasn't a big standout star name, but came in and played a huge role for this defense. So, I think the Niners are sticking with their strategy, the plan that has worked for them, while they continue to try and build. Here's the good news. Yes, the Niners haven't done a lot, but neither has the NFC. No one has really done it. If anything else, everyone has gotten weaker around San Francisco, while the Niners have kind of stayed stagnant and just lost a couple of pieces and lost a few things. The Rams' O-line is in shambles. you did a weird thing with the wide receiver move and room and made kind of a lateral move. You didn't re-up your linebacker that you had in Reader. Your safety room is getting to a point where you're losing Weddle, a guy who's a key piece during the playoff run. He's gone back to retirement. You lost Whitworth on the O-line and a couple of other pieces as well. You lost Sebastian Joseph Day on your interior for your O-line. You weren't able to go out and get the Dante Fowler or someone else to replace Von Miller leaving and going somewhere else. So they still have holes. A lot of teams in the NFC still have holes, and no one's really doing anything about it right now. Seems like everyone in the NFC saw the AFC spending the moolah and was just like, okay, you guys have fun right now. We're all just going to sit pat and see what happens.
Yeah, right now they're not spending, but let's see what they do with the medium level guys. And I think what was crazy is I thought the Rams were gearing up. The way that they're freeing up money, I thought they were really gearing up to go after Bobby Wagner or go after one of these edge rushers like Jadeveon Clowney, somebody to make a big splash. But it appears that they're just going to give Aaron Donald a bigger contract. He's about to sign a contract extension, and that's where a lot of the money is going to go. I thought that was interesting. So I think the Rams have made some interesting moves. I don't think Arizona's done a lot. We know Seattle's taken a step back. But Brad asked the question, are the 49ers, a better chance of winning the NFC West or becoming the 5th seed this season, Alex?
Right now, 5th seed? A few moves away from winning the NFC West.
I do too. I think they're the 5th seed right now. The more realistic spot is the 5th seed because I don't think we know everything we need to know about Trey Lance. I think he's got a lot of ability, and if he plays up to his potential, I mean, we could be talking about the Niners having the best record in the NFC. I mean, that's literally the give and take with Trey Lance's ability is, one level he takes us all the way. The next level, he does good enough for us to win and be in the 5th seed. So I think it's one of those things we have to take time and wait, but they do need to continue to build this roster because there is holes right now. Free agent holes possibly, draft holes definitely. So the way that they fix this over the next, 6 weeks is going to be what signals whether the 49ers are a potential NFC West, competitor, or if they're in fact going to be more relegated to the wild card and then see what they can do in the playoffs again.
Very much could be the case, and very much could be the case. Dan Angotti asked, do you guys have a draft crush or prospect you like a lot that could be there for us at pick 61? There's a lot of guys that I like that could be there at pick 61, but the guy I think I'm absolutely enamored with and infatuated with is a tight end prospect out of SMU who's going to go much later than that for the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know if the Niners will actually go this route because there's definitely questions in the blocking game and the concussion history with that gentleman, Grant Calcaterra at SMU. But I love everything that man has put on tape. I love everything that he has had to overcome. Big fan of him and looking forward to seeing where he goes and where he lands. But there are tons of guys that I think could be available at 61 for the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
Tons.
Yeah, there's lots of guys. Right now, we just don't know what that movement's going to be. There's going to be a lot of movement over the next, few weeks, and people are going to really, really move up boards in the last couple weeks before the draft. That is what happens when agents start talking it up, front offices start, throwing out their smoke screens to tell which guys they're wanting to move and which guys they're not. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I think that the 49ers are going to have somebody that could be a prime player there. Do I wish they were picking higher? Yeah, I do. I wish they were picking somewhere between 35 and 50. I think they could get a really, really impact player. But there's always a potential somebody falls. I mean, last year we were talking about a lot of guys, including Asante Samuel, who fell, that the 49ers could potentially target. They didn't. But it just shows that, players often slide, and really, really talented players can end up on your team. So 61 is still a good spot to be. Of course, it's not as good as drafting higher, but hey, I mean, there you go. 61, maybe they can draft a impact football player. Right now, the mock drafts look like there's going to be some good players there.
A lot of good players there and a lot of potentiality. Bay Rays 9-12. What is up, gentlemen? How you doing? Good, sir. Lawrence Kramer, we need a good center is what he's saying. So I don't know if he's saying Mac isn't the answer or if he's saying let's go get someone in case Mac isn't ready. And in that case, or if Mac decides to retire, and in that case, the Niners definitely should address it. The question is how will they address it? Who would they go after in that situation? They're going to go after a diverse guy who can do a handful of different things. They're going after a Lindenbaum from Boston College, or are they go in a different direction entirely?
Yeah, maybe they are. We'll see. I just don't know if they're ready to go rookie center at this point.
I don't know.
It doesn't appear that Kyle Shanahan normally goes rookie center.
Then again, last year, right, we gave a list of offensive linemen the Niners were going to go get, and then they went and got Aaron Banks.
Yeah, I think Aaron Banks threw everyone off. I mean, I think there was one guy. I can't remember who it was. Somebody hit us in the comment section last year, and I wish I could remember who it was. And he said, hey, the 49ers are going to take Aaron Banks. And it was like 2 weeks before the draft. I wish I could give credit to him. So But yeah, there was like one guy that I had heard say Aaron Banks.
The only guy that I heard say Aaron
other
Banks.
than that, I didn't really see anyone, tying the 49ers to Banks, but Banks is the pick. Let's see how he develops. I'm curious. I didn't see it in training camp last year. It didn't look like he was going to be one of those guys, and definitely was far off what everyone believed he was going to be, because I think everyone, including myself, believed he would eventually press Daniel Brunskill, and it wasn't there. But he's in the facility right now working out and trying to get better. Hopefully that development is gonna show up, and if it does, then the 49ers hit on this, then it was a big pick. If it doesn't, then you start to get nervous. You're hopeful then that him and some of these other guys that didn't really have big impacts as a rookie can develop into players that can get it done here in the next couple of years.
And Lawrence just clarified he thinks Mac may retire or is not going to last very long. This is definitely sense, yeah. It's definitely something that's on San Francisco's mind. They're definitely planning for this possibility and situation where Alex Mack doesn't come back and doesn't return.
I think they think he's coming back this year.
I think they think this year. I just don't know about long term.
No, I think this will be it. I think if the Niners would have won the Super Bowl last year, he would have retired. He's in it to win the Super Bowl. That's what he wants. And I think if they win the Super Bowl this year, he'll retire. And I think even if they don't, he might retire as well. In fact, I do think he will retire after this season. But I don't make decisions for him. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. It definitely is speculation. He makes whatever decisions he wants to make.
We could be wrong, right? He's gonna play. He could be playing out the whole.
If he plays out all 3 years, he would be here in 2023 as well.
Accurate.
Yeah,
it's true. What the center from the Browns, J.C. Treader? I think it's just gonna be too much money.
Yeah, him a lot.
I like him a lot too. The question is, if you bring him in and Mac's coming back, are you okay with moving this guy to guard and having two guys that would be playing center for the system in San Francisco, eating up a good chunk of money? The Niners have shown they're not willing to pay guards a lot of money in the system. They're not going to do it.
Yeah, and you would think he would get a pay raise over what Mac's making right now, which is $6.5 million. You weren't willing to go that route with Laken Tomlinson, and pay, of course, Laken got like $13 million.
Accurate.
So, maybe a potential you could go, $7-8 million. This guy plays guard and then slides into, Mac's spot when he retires after the year. I think awesome. Niner fans would love that. That makes a lot of sense. I
don't hate that move.
Yeah, you have the heir apparent. This is a lot like when Randy Cross and Jesse Sapolo, flip spots when Cross retired. This is something that can happen, but I just don't know if the Niners are willing to go pay that money. And maybe they will take a look around, take a look at their roster, and then end up doing that. But I think them bringing back Daniel Brunskill means Brunskill right now is the leading candidate to be the starting right guard.
Oh, starting right guard and potentially backup center? Do you think it's him over Brendel at this moment?
No, I think they'll go Brendel as the backup center, and they'll go Brunskill as the starting guard if he doesn't get beat out by one of the other guys. But Brunskill still has to agree to his tender.
He hasn't done it. Same thing with Aziz. I don't think he's necessarily agreed either.
No, he hasn't agreed. He just kind of put up, that it was going to happen. So it could be that the 49ers are telling these guys to wait. They do have until April 22nd for them to agree on these tenders. So maybe the Niners are having them wait on it because they don't have the salary cap space currently until they move Jimmy Garoppolo or make other necessary moves. And because they have the April 22nd deadline, they do have a little bit of time before it needs to be done.
You have some time. You do have till that late April tagline in order to accomplish it and get those restricted free agent tags done. I think the Niners kind of have maybe not a deadline in place because there are definitely other moves they can do, like extend Jimmy Ward. You could extend Robbie Gould and free up cap space as well. There's a lot of guys still that you can extend and do different things with their contracts, restructure, and things like that in order to free up cap space so that you're not sitting in a bad spot come April when you're getting close to wanting to be able to deal Jimmy Garoppolo, but also get your restricted free agents under contract as well. So we'll see. We'll see what the San Francisco 49ers do and what other moves they're going to be making. Could you back end the Browns center contract, especially if you think Mac retires instead of Brad Jones? You could do that.
Yeah.
That is something the Niners could do and maybe, put the first couple of years as non-guaranteed money and a lower cap hit. The question is though, is he going to agree to that? I don't know if necessarily J.C. Treader's sitting there going, yeah, let me not get paid significant amounts of guaranteed money until the last 2 years of my contract once you know that Alex Mack won't be here.
Yeah, it's one of those games, right? You'd have to play a game with the contracts to make it work. I think Treader would make a lot of sense for the 49ers strategically because he's just an upgrade, and so far they haven't been willing to go that route. Maybe they know something about Banks and about more that we don't know. Maybe Chris Forrester and this coaching staff believe that both of them are going to be ready to go and are actually going to be good options. I don't believe they believe they're better options than Laken Tomlinson, though, because Tomlinson was playing at such a high level. But maybe they're a better option than, the alternative. So I think this is one of those things where right now we're stuck with trusting the coaches and what they believe in this front office. But there's a lot of guys out there that, would make the 49ers a lot better. And I think Treader's one of those guys. I think he would be exciting if they signed him. Kind of surprised, that Cleveland moved off of him because he's a really good football player.
True.
He would make the Niners offensive line definitely better. But let's see if they're willing to pull the trigger. I think if Mack would have retired, I think that would have been an obvious choice for the 49ers. I think Treader obviously would be the 49ers center. But the fact that Mack is still there, I think, puts into question whether that's an actual possibility.
Agreed with you there. It definitely makes it a little bit more difficult for it to be just something you pull the trigger on and do. And Megan said, come on, TCC, sub, share, like. At least hit that like button. At the very least, 71 was the goal. We're just a handful away. So hit that like button right now. Let's get that thing up to Trent Williams' numbers of likes. Anton, someone just asked, it was Sean, is Hasty a cinch to make this 53-man roster at this point? I don't think he is. Even with the running back room as it's currently constituted, you and I both believe this is not what this running back room is going to look like come training camp, OTAs, maybe even the draft. I don't think even if that were the case that he's a cinch to make the 53.
You would have to say right now he is because there's no one else.
But it's not going to be it. This is not it.
No, it's not it. But Elijah Mitchell, Jermichael Hasty, and Trey Sermon, we don't know what they're going to do. If they decide to go all draft, he might be a cinch to make this as a third down running back. I don't know. I mean, if you tell me that they're going to sign Phillip Lindsay and they're going to draft another running back, then maybe we can have this conversation. Like, okay, they got James Cook as well. So if they got James Cook, no, he's not going to be on this roster because James Cook is a more talented football player than Jermichael Hasty. But right now, he's a lock. They only got 3 guys. They don't even have Jeff Wilson Jr. under contract. And all these 3 of these guys all do things different. There's nobody that's a third down back the same way Jermichael Hasty is. So right now, he's a lock until they make other moves. Then it'll be apparent and it'll clear itself up.
Very accurate there. And Dr. Robert Anthony Jr. said someone said we should trade down, get 15 picks, have a deep draft, no holes after that? ? Exclamation point.
You're not going to draft 15 guys, and it depends on where these draft picks are because not every draft pick, is the same. And the Niners want to pick as many times as they can in the top 150. I mean, part of what they did last year was move off their 7th round picks and get into the 6th round. The last pick they made was Elijah Mitchell in the 6th round. You really want to get all the way up into the top 150. This is something we talked about last year, making sure you take 5 or 6 very good, picks in that top 150. It's not always about volume. It's about value. And I think that is one thing that's, as we do with our mock drafts, we like to trade back, get capital, and draft all these guys. It's like, we filled all these holes, but only 53 men actually make these rosters. So most of those players that you drafted out of the 15 wouldn't even make your team. Most of them wouldn't even make your practice squad. Some of them would be playing for other football teams, so it really didn't benefit you any. So I think right now it's about value and not volume, and we'll see what the 49ers do, but I don't think they're going to make that 7th round Mr. Irrelevant pick. I could be wrong, but I would expect them to try to move up, use those 2 6th-round compensatory picks and that 7th round pick to move up somewhere higher in the 6th round and make a pick there.
Very true as well. And Monica is in the chat. TCC, give Monica some love. Good to see you. Our Discord connoisseur and our Discord. I mean, she does it all in Discord. Monica does it all in Discord. TCC, give Monica some love. Good to see you here, girl. Nice to see you around. Baymac, I'm not the smartest man in the world, but I promised you, if I was in Kyle's position, I would have landed Cordero Patterson. I love it, Baymac. That was heart-wrenching when I saw that he signed with Atlanta, and he seemed very excited to sign with Atlanta. I think he even tweeted out that there was no doubt, F the money, I'm going back to the ATL. There may have been some doubt. I think he would have liked to maybe be in some other situations, but at the end of the day, it was the best situation in terms of what he could get cash-wise and how he's going to be. He knows how he's going to be used in Atlanta.
Yeah, it could be the fit, right? If he's going somewhere else, there's potential that they're not going to use him, to maximize his skills. So he had to make sure he was going to be in the best situation for him as a football player. And then he wanted to be somewhere he feels comfortable. He wouldn't have to move his family now. He's comfortable being in Atlanta. So sometimes it's better just to go back. If you weren't getting a better offer and you were just getting a similar offer, maybe you go back to the team you were on. Possible. So Cordero Patterson was excited about that. I think every one of us were hoping there was a potential for him to come and be a wide back style player for Kyle Shanahan. We know Kyle Shanahan has wanted him in the past. But once again, he eludes Kyle Shanahan. I guess you can't catch them all.
No, you really can't, Ant. Yeah. You really can't. But who knows? Maybe he'll still catch himself a nice John Ross in that 4.22 speed in free agency. Maybe himself a Phillip Lindsay and that possibility. There's still a lot of things the Niners can do. The question is just when? When is it going to happen? What is next for the 49ers in free agency? Is it just the Jimmy Garoppolo trade? Is that all it is at this point? Is that all 49ers fans are hoping for and praying for at this point? Is for Jimmy Garoppolo to be traded? it could be the case, and we could have ourselves a situation where we're waiting a handful of weeks, getting closer and closer towards the draft before that trigger actually gets pulled.
I think it's so much that they want resolution. They want to know what's going to happen. You know, they want to know if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get moved, what that compensation is going to be, and then what the Niners are going to do with that compensation. And that's one thing you're waiting to hear. And right now we have no resolution on what's going to happen. So everyone is kind of stuck in between. You know, and now you're getting the conversations that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to come back. The Niners are going to keep him as the backup quarterback. And so it stirs up a lot of emotions, enough that some of the 49ers fan base was putting around on Twitter that they would actually go and picket the front and you know, and do that in front of the headquarters of the 49ers.
We're not there yet. We're not really there. Come on, guys.
It's not there yet. I think if the 49ers said, no, we're going to keep Jimmy Garoppolo, I think some people would take it to that level. So this is going to get interesting, but I think there will come resolution at some point during this offseason, and Jimmy Garoppolo will get moved, because I think at some point, right, John Lynch just has to blink, take the offer that's available, get that money, or get those picks, that compensation, and free up that cap space.
True, and it's very true. And Mr. Corey, when Tart is resigned, he's going to say the same thing Patterson said.
There you go.
There's a chance. There's a chance that could happen. Cutback crew, we're going to get close to wrapping this thing up here. So any questions that you have left, make sure you're dropping them right now in the comments section. We're going to rapid fire some live Q&A. So anything else that you want to know or want to ask, now is the time to do so.
I like what Lou said too. No more dead cap please. Jimmy G moves next before anything substantial happens. I think that is something definitely that most 49er fans agree with. Is let's not restructure any more deals. Let's go ahead and make sure that Jimmy Garoppolo is the next move, and then move accordingly after that. So that way we don't incur any dead hits in 2023, 2024.
Let's have as much cap as possible.
Yeah, you want to, because as that money goes up, you want to continue to be competitive. The main thing is making sure you're competitive for the next 4 years with Trey Lance on his rookie pay scale.
Agreed with you there, Ant. Agreed with you indeed. Sean said, when Kinlaw returns, does he move to the nose or play his normal spot? It feels like nose is the option. This is what you're going to have to do, moving off of DJ Jones.
It would seem that it's going to be nose. I mean, he's the next best guy to play that role, apparently. I mean, if he's healthy. We've seen flashes, but we haven't seen the health consistently stay there. But, I mean, he's a dominant guy against the run. But the pass game is not there. I mean, he's not going to be as dynamic as DJ Jones rushing the passer right now. I think he needs to improve a little bit in that area. I think he can. But yeah, it would make sense because the defense was just so much better against the run with Armstead inside. So I think Armstead remains inside, and it's Kinlaw that's the next guy. And then they've done a good job of backing him up already, making some other moves.
Feels that way, and it definitely does feel that way indeed. Mr. Corey asks, James Cook or Saquon Barkley, who would you rather have? You had a choice.
I mean, I think right now, Saquon Barkley's proven at the NFL level how dynamic he is. I'll say this, though. James Cook is healthy. James Cook is smooth. But they're different. They're different types of players. So I think that James Cook, I'm not sure he's a 3-down back right now. I think as he's coming into the league, he's a 3rd-down back. And then eventually he could develop into a guy that could play all 3 downs. But I think he would be a nice change-up from what you're getting from Elijah Mitchell. With Saquon Barkley could do it all. You can play him anytime you want. He's got that name value, but the ability that he has to completely make a dominant play at any moment is different than it is for James Cook.
I like that there, right? My heart just says Saquon because I know it.
Right.
I know what I'm getting. Even with the injury stuff, I know what I'm getting. It's a risk that I may be willing to take, knowing that we only have to give up potentially a 4th or a 5th round pick to do it. James Cook, though, is the brain decision, right? It's the not injured guy, a guy that can still develop, young talent that we know. Kyle Shanahan has done a lot with very little. Yeah. So you don't always necessarily need the big splashy name at the running back room in order for there to be an impact. So my brain says James Cook is the guy that makes the most sense. My heart says, but it's Saquon Barkley. And take a great guy and put him in Kyle Shanahan's system, and you have Hall of Fame potentialities and crazy things happening with the run game, but he has to be healthy. He has to be healthy for that to be the case. And just, it's a risk. It's a risk either way, right? It's a risk because James Cook either develops or he doesn't. And Saquon, if he's healthy, then you're getting something incredible and you didn't have to give up a lot of capital. But if he gets hurt at any point in time, what have we done? We did it again, right? We went after a guy with an injury history and it blows up in your face.
Well, it also depends on what you gave up. You know, I mean, you potentially will have to use a 3rd-round pick on James Cook and could get Saquon Barkley for a 4th-round pick, is what the New York Giants have apparently floated out there. We don't know if that's completely accurate, but that was what was floated out there. If it's a 4th-round pick at $7 million, if you can restructure that deal as far as sign him to an extension, lower that cap number so it's not so big and inflated, maybe. That makes sense.
Maybe.
But, I mean, yeah, third-round pick for James Cook or fourth-round pick for Saquon Barkley. When you look at it that way, I don't think there's very many people that would choose Cook over Barkley.
I don't think there's many as well. And Brad Jones just asked, round in the draft for James Cook, it's looking like third.
Yeah, right now it's looking like third. I think that he could move up because he's smooth. Depending on how he handles the rest of the offseason, he could definitely run up some boards. I think he's a good player, but running back values just aren't what they used to be. So I don't think there's going to be any running backs taken in the first round, which means there's going to be congestion in the second round, and someone like Cook could fall the way into the third.
Very well could be the case. And Gary, as for coffee, I'm typically just like a standard guy. I usually only drink it in the morning, so it's just a standard breakfast blend or dark roast or something like that. But if I'm feeling frosty and froggy and want to take a leap, mocha. Just a mocha. I like me a mocha. Mochas are nice. As for a couple other questions here, Ant, I saw Quest for 6. What do you think about a draft day trade for Saquon Barkley? Is that still a possibility? I think that actually might be the most realistic situation for it.
Yeah, that makes the most sense, in fact. I think a lot of players that are going to get moved are going to get moved on draft day. You don't get the guy you're getting, or you don't see the potential to get the guy you want, so you go ahead and get a veteran player. Trent Williams was one of those guys that was moved. I fully expect there'll be other veterans around the league that get moved for draft picks as their player would be available, and then you go ahead and make the move. But right now, there's just so much unknown about where these players are going to fall, what players are going to be available at certain times, that everyone's just kind of sitting back. I mean, we do see some moves, but right now, if you're like a wide receiver, for instance, there's not a lot of value for you on the trade market. Robert Woods, 6th-round pick. Amari Cooper,
5th-round
pick. Yeah. I mean, so it's better to be a free agent like Christian Kirk, where you can get all kinds of money. Yeah. Jacksonville could have had Amari Cooper and Robert Woods for a 5th and a 6th-round pick, and you got Christian Kirk.
Overpaid for Christian Kirk. Whoo, and that is glorious. Baymac, for Kyle being an offensive genius, do you think he's overrated as a coach? And if there's problems you guys have seen before, has he fixed past mistakes?
I think early in the year, the mistake was that this team was not gelling. Whether that is on Kyle Shanahan or on the players themselves, it's his responsibility to make sure this team plays together. They were missing blocks. They were missing tackles. They were making mistakes. So that solely falls on the head coach. Do I believe that he should get fired for those mistakes? No, because he fixed them during the year and the team came around and played at a high level enough to get all the way to the NFC Championship game. I think he's a good football coach. But I think what happens is sometimes he's maybe a little reluctant to make changes, and he kind of trusts his players a little bit too much. He thinks that somebody like Charlie Warner can make that block, and he has a lot of faith that he can, and sometimes he can't. So what he has to realize is what these players' limitations are, and then he puts them in a good situation to be successful. I thought towards the middle of the season, he did that at a high level, and his team stopped making those mistakes, and the team started playing really well. But yeah, anytime a team doesn't play well, it falls solely on the head coach, whether it's his job or not. I mean, solely on him or not, he's the one that's in charge of this coaching staff and the players, so it is his responsibility, and that's what he feels. And that's why you've seen Kyle Shanahan go from what he looked like hired in 2017 to what he looks like now.
The stress?
Yeah, he looks like a president aging that went into office and comes out, completely aged.
It's true.
So I think that, he can take some responsibility, but he also needs to get some of the glory as well for what he did to bring the team back.
Look, at the end of the day, there's a couple of things here that has happened. He's put a lot of faith in guys who, in the last couple of years, guys like Raheem Mostert who just didn't stay healthy. And I think that kind of shorthanded the room a little bit the minute Raheem Mostert goes down early in the season and misses the year. And then on top of that, you then put the load on to Elijah Mitchell, and he goes down. Trey Sermon gets a concussion in the same game. JaMychal Hasty rolls an ankle, and the minute that happens, the Niners running back in the run game went into a full free fall.
Yeah.
You were kind of screwed there early in the season. And he had to try and get creative in terms of how you're going to try and run the football or, how you're going to attack defenses. And that means that you have to put faith in guys. And I think what happened was he put a lot of faith in a lot of guys who just
you
weren't
don't
ready
have
for
to.
it.
You can find ways around it.
Well, you can, but they didn't. They didn't go make a trade. They signed practice squad running backs. You
run a different personnel grouping. You put different players on the field, which he did.
He eventually goes to Debo.
Case in point, Debo Samuel, Jawan Jennings being out there blocking instead of another tight end. He made those adjustments, and once he did, the team benefited from those. So sometimes, you have to make those adjustments, and it took him a while to get there.
It did take him a while to get there. And look, that's part of it, right? Though it's testing things out. It's trying to figure out what the best route to go is, how the best way to go about attacking this. And I think it's fair to criticize the early struggles, but if you're going to criticize the late success and not attribute that to Kyle and attribute that solely to Debo and solely to specific guys on the team, well, then you're missing the fact that the coach had to put them in those positions and dial up those situations and get those scheme fits right and those situationals right for the team in order to execute. Kyle ends up. It seems like he just finds a way with this group to put guys in the right spots in the right situations. I think it's because he knows his players very well and he knows what he has in this room. I think the Niners have been very good about drafting and developing that and bringing the right pieces in to do a lot of different dynamic things. And the question is can you just add more of those pieces? Because if you can continue to add more, then it becomes very hard to miss and put guys in the wrong spots because there's so many different ways to attack.
Oh, no, it is. I mean, and every time there's an injury, it makes it a little bit more difficult to get around putting your guys in the right spots. You're not wrong about that. The thing is, though, with the whole praise, and then also, taking some of the heat, they go both ways. So when you're winning, everyone that's involved should get praise for that winning. And when you're losing, everyone should get, the kind of the jabs that you take for it, because you take a lumps and everything as a team. I mean, this is just what happens. I think that, a lot of times we will pick and choose one player or the other. Oh, you missed this player, you did that. But you have to look in totality what happens during the game. And a lot of times that's the reason you lose. It's not the 1 and 2 highlighted plays that cause you to lose, but it's everything that happened, around the entire game. So that's just one of those team football things. But I think Kyle, he took a lot of lumps and he relearned from those and he bounced back. And I think they're going to be a lot better for it. I think he's going to be a lot better for it. Let's see how he responds this year. A clean slate. Let's see how he responds with this roster and the way that he builds, the way that, the NFL is trending now. Is he going to be ahead of the game, or, what is he going to do there? I think this is a big year for Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers.
I agree with you on that, Ant. It's definitely a big year for Kyle Shanahan and the Niners. And, Monica just needs a commitment from us, Ant, for one late stream per week. She just needs one. Yeah. One stream late at night. She wants a commitment. We'll see what we can do, Monica. Yeah. We'll see what we can do. And if this is an option, if this is something that we can accomplish going forward. Look, I think at the end of the day for the Niners, I think there are still possible big moves that could be made. I still think there's situations where the Niners could bring in a big name and sign. But at the end of the day, it feels like the only way that this is happening, Ant, is if Jimmy Garoppolo gets dealt. And the question now is when, how, what team, why did it take so long, and what do the Niners get back in return? We're going to see. It could be tomorrow. It could be a week from now. It could be all the way up till closer to draft time.
Yeah, let's hope for a quicker resolution to this. Let's hope Jimmy Garoppolo gets moved and he lands somewhere where he wants to be, and the 49ers get all the picks that they want to get. And this is just one of those things that works out. Love to see Jimmy go to the AFC and go battle it out over there. That way the 49ers and the NFC continue to have a wide open range where we only have right now, it appears, a couple of really big roadblocks in the way. I mean, there could always be more than a rise as we continue to move through this offseason. But right now it appears Tampa Bay and Los Angeles are the biggest obstacles to overcome. And the 49ers hopefully are going to make a few moves that are going to let them do that. And if they do, this could be a fun year. Trey Lance's first year as a starting quarterback. Can they get him some more explosive weapons? They already did one with Ray McCloud. Let's see if they take it to the next level and bring another guy in either through free agency or the draft. If they do, this offense could be really fun, exciting, because Elijah Mitchell's going to be better in second year.
Stupid fun?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, Trey's got that kind of ability, and I think he's going to learn a lot during this offseason. I think he's going to come into training camp, and that's one thing I'm the most excited about. As we saw him in training camp last year, I can't wait to see the jump from year one to year two and how he operates this offense. And
training camp is going to be lit, dude.
Oh, it's going to be so fun. I can't wait for that July time to get here.
Agreed 100%. And Musich, excuse me. Welcome to the TCC, my guy.
Hey, I like what Lou said. Ant, do you really fear Jimmy Garoppolo in the NFC? No, I don't. But you know what? The thing is, Lou, is I just like to see him go to the AFC, because then there's just one less thing, right? One less talking point, a little more resolution to the 49ers. They don't play the Colts this year, so if he went there, that would make sense. Or if he went to another team like the Carolina Panthers, for instance, we'd at least have to hear about them in the NFC and the possibility of Carolina against the 49ers in the playoffs, which we know is probably not going to happen. But I also don't want to get Sam Darnold back at this point. I'm ready for all this to be over.
I'm ready for it to be over as well, Ant. I would like to move on and just focus on building this roster, seeing what Trey can do, what he can develop into, and the next step the Niners can take, because the hope is you move off of Jimmy, you move on to Trey, And the next step is not just getting to a Super Bowl, but winning said Super Bowl and bringing that 6th championship home to Santa Clara, bringing it to Levi Stadium, and completing the quest for 6 and moving on to the quest for 7.
Yeah, and I mean, part of the reason you don't fear Jimmy in the NFC is there's not a team that would trade for him right now that is ready-made to win a Super Bowl.
No.
You know what I mean? If it was New Orleans, like, you would have more fear about Jimmy Garoppolo going to New Orleans. But if he lands on Atlanta, they're not winning. They have no weapons. They're not winning a Super Bowl. If he went to Carolina, they're not winning a Super Bowl. They do have DJ Moore and some talent, but I just don't worry about it there.
Very true. Don't worry about it there. It's one less storyline to deal with if he goes to the AFC rather than the NFC, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. And Cutback Crew, we hope you enjoyed the stream, the chat. No breaking news, Hendricks. You asked anything new happening? No, nothing new.
Yeah.
More of the same in San Francisco land for now. Anything is possible. Anything could happen. We'll see, though. We'll see what happens going forward. We'll see if there's any news to break this upcoming week, and as we slowly work our way towards not the end of free agency, but the winding down of free agency and start to get closer and closer towards draft prep.
Right.
So make sure you're here. Make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell as well. That way you don't miss breaking news. And when we start getting closer to draft content, you're the first one notified when draft videos go up and draft streams happen. And also, when we do things like fan-controlled mock drafts where the chat is going to decide everything that happens in the mock draft, where you guys control everything that we do, be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited for the fan-controlled mock drafts. It's always a fun time. The possibilities of who they could draft are open, and then the draft pick gets made, and we have a little conversation about it, and then we move on to the next one, and you guys get to completely make all the moves, and we're just here to facilitate. Now, I'm looking forward to that because I want to see what the pulse of the 49ers fan base is, where they feel the 49ers needs are. Are they going to go cornerback with pick 61? Could be.
They're going to trade up?
Yeah, this will not be so much on us as it will be them. And we'll just be sitting here and waiting to see what everyone says.
Buy left nut and right nut, says Baymac.
Thanks, Baymac.
Endearing. I'm just going to go with endearing on that, Baymac. And Cutback Crew will catch you on the next stream in the next breaking news episode, which is hopefully sooner rather than later, but it's about that time.
Yeah, it is. Let's chalk another one up.
Catch y'all later, TCC.